Good to see you, everyone. My name is Robbie Howell. Welcome to another Enclave actual play. I am joined by three fine friends, two new, one familiar. Let's introduce ourselves in the order that you joined the call. Fire away.
All right. Well, I am Gemini Starfielder, or Zach, as Robbie here will refer to me throughout the session. I'm a longtime player of the legacy version of Enclave. I played the Fox class primarily, which look forward to that whenever it comes out. I stream on Twitch at Gemini Starfielder, and yeah, I think the game is awesome, and I'm really looking forward to the release.
Very kind of you to say. All right, fire away.
I think I might have joined next.
I think
Hi,
so.
I'm Mary May. I played the previous session that was recorded. I had an absolute blast, so I'm really excited to be back.
Thank you so much. And our newest friend.
Hi, I'm Mars. I'm really new to playing Enclave, and I am really excited to play.
I really appreciate you saying so. All right, let us begin with character creation. So Mary May is going to be using a character from last time. But for the other two members of the mission, let's dive into the process. So I believe, unless either of you have changed your mind, you will both be playing the Thunderbird class. Is that true?
That is my plan to play Thunderbird.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, this gives us a chance to show off how two of the same class can actually still look quite different. So the first thing that we're going to be doing, as always, is we're going to be figuring out our personality. Now, Enclave has 12 personality traits correlated to the 12 stats, and the traits that you have will impact your stats to some degree, as well as influencing how your character behaves. Two of your traits are defined by your class, and the third one you get to pick. So for the Thunderbird, conveniently, I only have to say the two that you will share. You will both share the ambitious trait, which is correlated to Arcane, and the enthusiastic trait, which is correlated to vigor. So you both have ambitious and enthusiastic. The third trait you get to pick for yourselves. In the text, in the document that I sent you, it's on page 9, at the bottom of the character creation section. You can pick any of the 10 traits that you don't already have. Get to pick one of these. They are each, of course, correlated to a stat, so you can think about which stat you might want, or which trait you might enjoy playing most. If you'd like, I can give you a rundown, and happy to answer any questions if you have them. In the meantime, Mary, could you remind us of your personality for your character?
Yeah, I believe my personality pick was luck,
Yep.
if I remember correctly. I thought that would be fun to just be able to be lucky.
Absolutely. So you have alert for the sensory stat, ambitious for arcane, and then carefree for luck. All right, Zach.
Bunch of ambitious fellows.
Yeah, this is an ambitious group right here.
Indeed.
Zach and Mars, what are you thinking so far, if you have any ideas?
I'm thinking I'm going to lean into skill and choose the confident trait.
Perfect. And Mars, do you have any ideas so far, or you need some more time?
I need just a little bit more time.
That's totally fine. In the meantime, while Mars is thinking, Zach, we can start to figure out your stats. Obviously, in Legacy, it worked a little bit differently, but in,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
in this version of Enclave, the way we do it is through pluses. Each plus represents a pretty substantial jump in the stats impact. And the way you're going to get 6 total pluses to distribute across your stats. 4 of these are already defined. For each of the upticks in your class's stat modifiers, you get 1 plus. So as a Thunderbird, you automatically have 2 in Arcane, 1 in Vigor. And then another plus is defined by your picked trait, and then the last 2 you get to distribute however you want. No stat can go above 3. While you are considering, Mars, do you have any idea on trait? Or if you want, if you have any want to ask questions or ask for input, we're happy to provide.
Oh, I was waiting for the page that was on.
Sure.
I actually looked at traits.
Awesome.
I forgot.
That's totally fine.
Um,
Yeah, I definitely had a hard time picking my personality one originally, because there's a lot of different options you want to go with. They're all pretty
Exactly.
cool.
Wait until the full version comes out. Is the personality list going to be as long as it was in Legacy, Robbie?
Yep.
Oh, good. Yeah, have fun with that, or is it going to be randomized still, or is it going to be like?
I'm going to give people
choosing?
options, actually. I think
Okay.
we'll do a couple. Yeah,
Leave it to the discretion of the player.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Mars, fire away.
What was the 2 traits that we start off with?
So you, by default, have ambitious and enthusiastic, since the Thunderbird is a class that specializes in the arcane and vigor stats. So you have ambitious, enthusiastic.
Funnily enough, I was gonna choose those.
Perfect.
Let's see. I think I'm gonna do compassionate.
Excellent. The Spirit Thunderbird route. Great. And now that you have your traits, we're going to handle your stats. So in Enclave, there are 12 stats, but even if you don't improve a stat, it's still very, very usable. Stats are improved with pluses, up to 3 pluses in a stat. And 1 plus in a stat is very good. Like that puts you at for example, if you put a plus in might, that puts you at the tier of like a pretty elite athlete. If you have 2 pluses, that puts you at like an incredibly elite athlete, and 3 pluses is bordering on not real in our world. So with 3 pluses to, for example, might, you can do ridiculous stuff, like be able to pick up like a car by 1 bumper, you know what I mean? Sort of thing I don't think would be probably possible.
I think the car would sooner fail than
yeah, exactly.
in that case.
So because of that, here's how we're going to distribute your stats. You get to pick where 2 of these pluses go, but 4 of them are defined by your class and your personality trait option. You're going to be starting with 2 pluses to Arcane, because the Thunderbird specializes heavily on Arcane. 1 plus to Vigor, because the Thunderbird has a lesser specialty in Vigor. And 1 plus to Spirit, because that was the stat that you picked through your personality trait. The last 2 can be distributed wherever you want, just so long as no stat goes above 3. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Take a moment. I know this can be kind of tough. While you are considering, Zach, have you made your decision?
Yes, and I just opened the wrong window to explain which ones I took. There we go. So I obviously have a baseline 2 to Arcane, 1 to Vigor, and 1 to Skill. I have distributed an extra point to Arcane to give it a 3 plus, and 1 plus to Might.
Excellent. Very, very well-rounded kind of combat Thunderbird build. And Mary May, could you give us a rundown of your stats if you remember them?
I certainly can, and I also realized I cheated last time, so we'll do that again. I don't think it ever came and was a factor, but I had 7 pluses.
Oh,
so
no.
Fixed that. So I have
Only a little bit.
Only a little bit. I had a plus in intelligence that I don't think came up too much, so I went ahead and got rid of that.
That's fine.
So I have 2 pluses in each of my stats, so I have 2 in sensory, which means I'm alert, 2 in arcane, so my personality with that is ambitious, and then 2 in luck, so I'm a bit more carefree.
Excellent. All right, now, so that's a very, it's a balanced but like focused build, you know what I mean? Like you see people who have like 1 stat at 2 plus and then have 5 stats at 1, but this is a lot more like selective. Mars, do you have an idea on stats as of now, or do you need a little more time to think?
I want to get a plus in 2 pluses in might.
Excellent. That would bring you to double arcane, single vigor, single spirit, double might. Sound good? The single spirit would be coming from personality.
Right,
Yeah.
personality trait.
Say that again.
I was very confused.
Yeah.
I was like, where did that come from?
Yeah. So it would be 2 pluses in arcane, 1 plus in spirit, 1 plus in vigor, and 2 pluses in might. Does that sound appropriate to you?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Stats are the hardest part. The rest is going to be pretty easy. Next step is gear. All classes have a pair of gear rosters. One is your default gear. You have this automatically. And the other is elective gear. You get to choose one of these and do with it what you will. Class gear is all quite powerful. It is supernaturally better than a mundane equivalent. And as a Thunderbird, your default gear, so the stuff you have automatically, is a feathered cloak, talaria, which are winged sandals, and a thunderhammer. And then the elective gear, among which you can pick one, are the heroic cuirass, lightning bolts, and ceremonial drum. If you want to see more on these, it's at the top of page 19, I believe. To give a brief breakdown of these, the feathered cloak and talaria are both movement options. Like they really open up your mobility. And the thunderhammer is a standard weapon with like some extra intrigue to it. Whereas the elective items are all, I'd say they're all like kind of funky, except for lightning bolts. If you want to go for something simple, just take lightning bolts. They're a strong like damage option at range, but they do have downside because like they're lightning bolts. They could accidentally arc to an ally and hurt them instead of your intended target. While you are considering, Mary May, would you kindly share with us what elective gear option you chose?
Yes, my elective gear option was, and it still is, I'm keeping it, a hand mirror, which allows me to communicate to my team members, or I think potentially, it says allied, so yeah.
Yeah.
With the mirror, it takes some focus to do that, and it takes a while to cool down to reset. It's also just a mirror, which I found was kind of nice.
Yeah, that actually was quite useful, yeah.
Yeah. So I think pretty good overall item. Even if it was a normal mirror, it would be pretty useful. But
yeah, totally. Zach and Mars, any thoughts coming to your mind looking at the elective gear options, or any questions you have about the Thunderbird's gear in general?
I'm thinking I'm going to keep it simple and just take those lightning bolts.
Oh yeah, there's a lot to like about lightning bolts. What about yourself, Mars? What do you think so far?
I'm looking at the elective gear right now. You said it was page 19, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be right above Thunderbird abilities.
I think we're gonna do the Bath Pike and Kite Shield.
Oh, that's on the Thane. I think I gave you the wrong page. Can you skip down 2 more pages past the Thunderbird art onto the page directly after? There's a section,
I see.
Yeah, there's a section that says Thunderbird abilities, and the elective gear is the Cuirass, lightning bolts, and ceremonial drum. The Cuirass is an armor option, which Thunderbirds, since Thunderbirds fling themselves into the action quite often, armor can be surprisingly good, but it also has the interesting utility of the turning point option, which can be hard to pull off, but very, very satisfying when you do. And the ceremonial drum is largely utility, but as you know, Zach, energy work implications are very, very strong.
Oh, yes. Memory bombs are
I
fun.
think I'm gonna go with the lightning bolts.
Excellent. So we got 2 comparable Thunderbirds who nevertheless are going to be able to bring pretty substantially different options to the mission. Let's jump into the last 2 pieces. First of all, your character's name, and similarly, their appearance and background. Now, appearance and background, you can be very brief with these. You could have a sentence of information. But since Enclave takes place in an infinite world, you have complete control over where your character comes from. And they can they can be as outlandish as you want in appearance. They can be a fantasy species if you want. The only thing I ask is if you make them a fantasy species, and they are substantially different from a human, you have some fair upsides and downsides. An example I've often gotten is, oh, can I play an elf? Do I just say, well, yeah, but the way that elves are typically portrayed, they're just better at everything. So if you're playing an elf, give me a fitting downside that an elf might have. You know what I mean? For example, maybe elves are scared of fire in where your elf comes from. That's pretty crippling in a lot of context, and that's a good way to balance out them being kind of good at everything. So just as an example, obviously, name, appearance, and background can be a bit challenging to do, but to prompt us on that process, one more time, Mary May, if you wouldn't mind, share yours.
Yeah, I'm playing the same character as last time, which is helpful for me because I don't have to come up with anything new.
Yeah.
But her name is Siri. I based her heavily on the wizard from the Wizard of Oz book series. She has, long blonde hair. I've also decided her color is going to be pink because I wear a lot of pink, and I think that's, I think that's fitting. So, a long time ago, she was definitely a con artist and stumbled her way into kind of manipulating herself into being the leader of a country. That country found out that it was a lie and rightfully kicked her out, and since then she's been on sort of a redemption arc trying to redeem herself and become the leader she should have been when that happened. Also, as a side note, because I keep playing with it anyways, my friend got me a fan, and one of my magic items is a fan, so that might come up at some point. Sorry if it's loud when I flick it out.
Not at all. It's sick. We love it. Now, so because of that, Mary has done some great world building in her character's background. And that's the sort of thing that you can do. You don't have to go in as much depth if you want, but you can think of where your character is from as being this like pocket of a multiverse. And within that pocket, you have complete control. But obviously the missions you go on are very likely to take place anywhere besides that. So you're kind of bringing your story with your character as a part of who they are without it like necessarily impacting a ton of what happens on a given mission, unless you and your host decide that you specifically want to do a mission in your character's home country, which, I mean, we've done before and can be a lot of fun. While we are taking the moment, something that you mentioned earlier, Zach, is whether I'm going to have the full trait list. Yes, and to explain what that means for context. So right now we have 12 personality traits. In the next expansion of Enclave, which I intend on calling Aspirant Edition, as opposed to Advent Edition, this one, we're going to have 132 personality traits. One for each combination of plus and minus for all stats. And in addition, my current plan may change, is to have a thing where if you have a trait and you're not like wholly satisfied with it, you can pitch a new trait that fits that combination of plus and minus. Infinite options is very fun.
Yeah.
Because the way we used to do it is we used to have, you got to pick 2 parts of your personality and then everything else was randomized as a way of being like, all right, you have to work with something thrown at you. I might keep that as an option, but if I do, having the option for people to be like, this isn't quite what I was going for, but I have something that's similar, I think that's a good compromise.
Yeah.
So, Zach or Mars, do you have any threads thus far for your name, appearance, background, or do you need a little more time? It's fine if you need more time.
So, I'll be perfectly honest, I actually went through and did all of this, like, last night. This character has been built since yesterday.
Perfect.
So, my character's name is Cullen Elias Mann. As far as appearance, Cullen is a relatively tall man, long blonde hair that bears a silver streak. His body is slim-framed with a reasonable amount of pretty bulky muscle. His skin is light tan, and he has muted purple eyes.
Excellent. And for background, what are you thinking?
Yes. So Cullen is the chosen vessel to the blessing of the thunder god Arcturus. In seeking to hone his power and grow his abilities, he joined the Enclave, and he remains loyal and vehemently devoted to the god which chose him. The location he's from is Elwain. It's very traditional, very close ties to ritual practices and the gods of the location.
Sick. That's very, very comprehensive, very nicely done, and a great tie-in of the class to the background while still taking in a different direction. I'm telling you, Zach, when we get advanced abilities in this, you're going to see why this idea is like especially cool, based on what I have planned for this. Mars, do you have any ideas so far, or do you need a little more time?
No, I have an idea.
Perfect.
So my character's name is RC, which is short for Regalia Symphony. Her last name is Bloom, and she comes from a very mixed background. Her father is he's a fae, he's a fairy, and her mother is a demigod, and so she struggles with, honing her abilities and her powers. So she has dampening cuffs on her at all times, so she doesn't hurt anyone. In the process of learning how to, um, how to not try to say this correctly, how to properly, what's the word?
Like master her abilities or something like that?
Yes, master her abilities. As she's still considered very, very young on both sides of her family. Her mom lives in a uh, jungle type of land that's called what's it called? Hold on, I forgot the name that I called it.
If you need a
I
moment, you
called
can
it.
define it later.
Yeah. But yeah, she's considered very young. She's in her 20s, but both her parents are thousands and thousands of years old, and she's still considered a baby. And so she just wants to set out into the world and do her own thing and see what happens.
Brilliant. And what does she, roughly speaking, look like?
She is about, she's like 6'2".
Tall.
She has dark brown hair, and she has white and purple streaks throughout her hair, and she typically has armor on, and that's about it. She's always in a battle skirt.
Sick.
Yep, battle skirt.
I do have a question, which
Yeah.
is if her parents, or I think you said her dad was a fairy, does she have wings or no?
She does have wings when she wants to. She typically doesn't. She typically has them like not around. If that makes sense.
Like ephemeral wings.
Like she's just like walking around.
Yeah.
Like
Totally. And that's something we could actually build into your Talaria item. Like in Enclave, we have a system called skinning, where so long as a piece of your class gear still does the thing it's supposed to do, you can make it look like anything you want. So instead of wearing winged sandals, we could have it such that her Talaria are her wings. Or even the feathered cloak that the Thunderbird class has. That's another thing that we could say is actually her fairy wings. Because the Thunderbird's feathered cloak allows it to glide, and the Talaria allows you to pretty much double jump, like jump off of air. So whichever of those two functions you think would be better fit for your character's fairy wings, we can have that item be skinned as that piece of her body. Do you have a preference between the two?
that's cool. Not really.
Awesome. In that case, we'll define it when it becomes relevant. Okay, now that we have this set, I would ask that you each put your character's name in chat so that you can each consult them in the moment. And now that we have that, we're going to move on to focus words so that I can generate the mission. I think you all know the concept of focus words by now. Word, short phrase can be any old thing that you would like. I am going to take each of these now, and then I'm going to, I'm still going to be open in the call, so you can flag me down if you need me to, but I'm going to be walking around a little bit while I'm thinking. While I am generating the mission, I would ask that you all take the opportunity to discuss your characters with each other, talk about potential strategies. This is your moment to, out of character, be able to coordinate and synergize in advance of the mission. Okay?
Sounds good.
Excellent. Focus words, let's get one each. If any of you have one ready to go, fire it away. Yeah, fire away, Mary May. What do you got?
Fairy tale.
Excellent.
I love that anime.
It's a great anime. Are we doing old style focus words where it's just one word, or can we do
You could do a short
phrase?
You could do a short phrase, yeah.
Okay, mine is going to be ink pen butterfly.
My goodness.
Interesting.
All right, and Mars, what do you got?
Going with Thinkle Twinkle.
Twinkle, twinkle. Excellent.
We have a very interesting set of focus words for two Thunderbirds and an illusionist to work with.
You've given me,
And my past experience with Enclave is anything to go off of. This is going to be fun.
You've given me an incredibly cohesive set of focus words. I already have a very good idea of what I'm doing with this, but I'm still going to bop out and generate. Again, wave me down if you need me. Take what time you need to discuss. I'll be right back.
For sure.
All right, I have an immediate concern, which is just you guys are both Thunderbirds, so there's definitely going to be combat, and I can't do combat. I'm going to be useless as soon as there's a fight.
So you won't be useless, right? Something that's like very cool is how like open-ended the ability work in Enclave is, right? You can really mess around with illusion work, and basically while like Cullen and RC are like dealing damage, taking hits, you can be like in the back line managing the battlefield, right? Funneling people to where they need to be using illusion work, right? So like you might not be able to deal like damage incredibly, but you're not useless in a fight, right? And that's something important to like note when you're like going into different situations.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be entirely useless, but I'm very squishy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Mage classes in general, like even in Legacy Enclave, are usually very squishy, unless like with the old progression system, when you when you level up, you can like add to stats largely however you wish. But like if you go into the resilience stat, you can do that and build a tank mage. But your arcane capabilities will suffer for your level placement as a result, right? So usually like there's a little bit of like a, hey, let's work into resilience here, but usually it's put into arcane, spirit, vigor, that kind of stuff, like intelligence, that whole deal. Usually not like the physical. Oh, go.
Have you seen Naruto before?
Naruto, yes. Some, not much though.
I played the Wii game.
There were a few. Which one?
It was so long. It was like Naruto Shippuden Clash of Ninjas 2 or 3.
I think my cousin actually played that exact game for a while. I remember that.
Do you know anything about their abilities or powers?
I know kind of how they work. It's kind of like the whole ninjutsu kind of deal. Depending on the ninjutsu you kind of class and spec into, you have different abilities based on that, and you can like work it in different ways.
You should think of when you're like in combat, say the chance that you do get into like an altercation with someone, you should think of your ability as like a genjutsu, which you can put somebody into like their mind, like you trap them in their minds and like physical, like a mental torture.
Yeah, the amount of mental games that you can play in Enclave when you have illusion magic at your disposal.
It was. I have so many
fun.
ideas that I haven't done, but it definitely the like one of the things I do remember about Naruto is like when you make 1 billion copies of yourself.
The Shadow Clone Jutsu, yeah.
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 So that would definitely be helpful.
Yeah, one of the things that I made reference to when Robbie was talking, he like brought up energy work in passing, which is kind of the mechanism of like, hey, this ability does this thing, but in using it with either some fitting paired action or another warrior's ability, you can get really crazy stuff to happen, right? Including in a mission with a librarian, which is in the Advent edition, we managed to make a literal memory bomb and set it off in a courtroom.
Oh, very interesting. Speaking of that, I had the illusionist stuff pulled up. I'm pulling up Thunderbird now, so I could like try to figure out how to like mesh them together. Awesome. Okay, and in general,
Robbie is typing. We're about to get information about the mission right now.
Sorry, I'm writing something out that will be very relevant.
Oh gosh, but in general, I think we're like, if this is kind of like we kind of have a lot of mystical words, My character is from more of like a whimsical, crazy place. I don't think I established that, but I'm from Land of Oz kind of type world. Crazy in the books. But
it's like the land of fairy.
yeah, and then we also have RC, who you said you definitely have like a Fae background. And Cullen, you're definitely familiar with magic in certain senses.
Yeah, like ritualistic kind of deal.
Yeah, so hopefully we should be in our wheelhouse in this.
Oh, yeah, hopefully.
All right, I got one more thing to type, and I'm good.
All right.
The only concerning thing is everyone will know our weaknesses.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but potentially.
Yeah.
Okay, I am ready to go if you all are. Ready to... are you all set?
Yeah, I think we are.
Okay, this is going to be your mission statement. So, again, all of your characters are members of the Enclave. It is a mercenary organization that spans the entirety of this self-contained multiverse. The Enclave is delivering to each of your characters a statement of a mission they wish to deploy them on. You all know this information in character, and you can all now ask questions. Those answers are also known to you in character, all of you, no matter who asked. The Enclave does not have a ton of information on this one, and they warn you that they only just learned about the necessity of this mission, so they haven't had a ton of time to collect information. You are being given a poem, and the only other information that you have is that the writer of this poem is in the process of unleashing something incredibly dangerous on the surrounding world of their corner of the self-contained multiverse, that is. If the thing they are releasing manages to escape from the place that it is right now, which is within a set of ruins, very, very bad things will happen. And they also say that if you cannot contain this thing to these ruins or destroy it, that will be a failure. Even if you harm it and it escapes, that's not going to be enough. Here is the poem. There once was a moth who was scared of the night. That poor little moth wished to fly in the light. But when the moth tasted the wind of the day, the sun shook his head and was hidden away. That is all the information you have to go off of, short of questions. What questions would you like to ask of the Enclave in advance?
Do we know what sort of locale we're being sent into? Like, do we have any information on that, or are we just kind of limited to this, like, shrine? And if we're limited to the shrine, like, do we have any specifics on the shrine as far as, like, what we might expect there, like, structurally, mechanically, things like that?
You're being sent to a windy highland, so very few trees, a lot of grass, mountains in the distance. The ruin that you're being sent to was once the site of a massive tower. So imagine, but it's almost completely destroyed. So imagine a roughly ring-shaped ruin that climbs no higher than 2 stories and might have some other, and is likely to have many other terrain features within that great ring of its former walls. Oh, and I guess I should also note, this is actually very relevant, it's noon. And it being highland, the wind is high. Other questions?
So I was trying to write everything down. Oh my goodness. So, getting an idea of the runes, I assume there's generally going to be like physical obstacles / hiding places.
Yes.
'Cause big
certainly.
rock. Okay, rad.
Big rock do be
Okay.
like that.
Big rock do help and hurt. And in general, I think Cullen's Gemini, sorry.
It's all good. Call me however you like.
Okay, making sure. Was getting at, do we expect to encounter people? We know that there is some sort of poet, and I can presume that we're going to encounter them. But if we're going straight to the ruins, are there inhabitants of this ruins or nearby that could be in there?
Almost certainly not. The ruin
Okay.
is fairly isolated. It is known that the poet who composed these verses is there right now.
Okay.
Is the poet an adventurer?
The poet is known to be an eccentric who has been shunned by society for some years now. They have wandered for quite some ways, and this ruin is one of several places they have called their home for a short time.
Are they vengeful?
The best that the Enclave can determine, they likely have a deep, bitter streak.
Yeah.
What exactly they are vengeful towards
So,
can't be
When
determined for
when
sure.
you say bitter streak, do you mean that there are strange coincidences happening at places he visits? Like destructive
As
coincidences?
of yet, no. This is the first sign that, from what the Enclave has determined, this individual has ever exhibited magic of any kind. If, in fact, it is them exhibiting magic and not being used by something. However, they have not had nice things to say to anyone for quite some time.
So he's basically just been like a dickish poet for a while, and now he suddenly has magic. It's like, oh, this is a problem.
Something along those lines seems to be the case. A good question. Any other questions?
Do we have any idea of, like, was this place built to seal this thing away, or is this just an access point that the poet is using?
No idea. What is the
No
only thing
idea,
that's
okay.
known is that this ruin, the tower that used to be built here, was destroyed hundreds of years ago.
Any indication on its original purpose?
Best that can be told, it was probably a signal tower of some kind, not a lighthouse, but like a land-ish equivalent thereof.
Okay, so is the area like very magical, like in terms of like the people there generally practice magic, or
Yes,
like there's like some
magic
sort of like
is known. Magic is known to the area, though magic in this area is not like powerful. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people have like small scale useful stuff to help them around the house, that sort
Yeah.
of thing.
So would it be reasonable to assume that this is some form of like magical beacon that's like it had to be such a towering structure to contain whatever was powering it?
Probably too much of a jump.
Too much of a jump. Okay.
Yeah.
In general, so two questions. One, do we have an age approximation of this poet? We know that he's been
Yes.
shunned by society for years. Okay.
He's old. He's in his 70s.
70s. Okay, awesome. And then, oh gosh, what was the second question? Second question. The thing that is being contained by the runes, do we have any you already said we have no indication of what that thing is. We don't know if it's living, some sort of, like, just essence of something.
The
or
only thing the
anything with
Enclave has
that?
determined is that the thing being released is some sort of powerful entity and that it is magical. It is, so it's known to be an entity, known to be powerful, known to be magical. That's it. And known to be connected to this poem.
Okay, fantastic.
We were really going in with minimal information.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is gonna be fun. I love information gathering in Enclave.
Final questions, or are we good to move on to assembly, where your characters can briefly meet in person, in character, before being deployed?
I don't
Question:
have any
Gotta
Is the
be.
moth
Yeah, Mars, what was
is
that?
the moth like trapped somewhere? Like, is the moth like trapped somewhere? Like, he can't get out.
It is not clear. It's not even clear whether what you're going to be dealing with is actually a moth, or whether it's just something
Like
connected through
symbolic
this.
poetry.
Yeah, symbolic, yeah. But that would be something that you will have to determine when you arrive on scene. In that case, I say we proceed to assembly. Your characters would all be gathered at Enclave HQ, brought to a beautifully furnished but entirely gray and sterile meeting room, and brought together. This would be Gesundheit. This would be your character's first time meeting each other. They would have been briefed in short on each other's capacities in advance of meeting here. Assembly does not last very long, just give you a chance to be in character. Obviously, if you have any questions for me out of character or for each other, fire away. Let's drop into character and move on with assembly. Fire away.
Is anyone going to be showing up like late? Because Cullen's going to be showing up there as soon as possible.
Like right on
Like,
time.
like, are you both going to be appearing at the same time, or like, is it
Oh.
going to be one at a time? Because that'll make things very funny.
It does certainly make sense for Siri to want to have a dramatically late, like not like too late, but late enough so that she can make a dramatic entrance.
Absolutely. In that case, we can
So-
say that RC would be the first one to show up after
Okay.
Cullen.
Right. So Cullen's going to walk up to RC and go, "Greetings, paralyzed man, chosen of the Thunder God Arcturus of Elwayne. A pleasure to meet you, as it is an honor to meet me."
Any response
Hello,
from Sarah?
nice to meet you.
Yes. So, yes, yes, of course. Thank you. So, looks like we've got quite a predicament on our hands. Dark forces being resurrected from, well, gods only know where, I suppose.
Indeed, it's quite troubling when you think about it. Popping
So
up out
what
of
do you think
nowhere.
we should kill first? The poet or the dark god being resurrected?
Who knows? All I know is that we need to get this thing under wraps before it becomes too much of a problem.
Certainly, yes. Making things more of a problem would be less than excellent.
What would Siri's dramatic entrance be?
A cloud of pink smoke appears when it dissipates. Siri's standing there fanning herself. Well, not one for poetry, but many a poem has been written about me.
Colin is immediately going to walk over to Ciri. "Greetings, colonized man, chosen of the thunder god Arcturus of Elwayne. A pleasure to meet you, as it is an honor to meet me."
We shall find out if it's an honor, Sir Cullen.
I like the cut of your jib. Let's get to it.
Do any of you read?
Do you assume that I am illiterate? Chosen
I'm not
of the
assuming
thunder
you're
god.
illiterate. I, for one, am not illiterate, but I don't read.
And why
The
don't you?
question confuses me. What do you mean?
Well, clearly this poem that we've been given has some sort of deeper sentimental or prophetic meaning, and I'm not much one for interpreting poems.
Oh, when do poets not mean something strange? Never understood the musings of the bards.
Well, it would be in our best interest to hit up the closest library and see if we can find any references to this poem.
That's a brilliant idea, but the Enclave would inform you all that you're operating on such a tight time frame, you would not have time to spend on such research. Actually,
Wow.
super friggin' smart, though.
Well, I suggest that we avoid flying, perhaps? Or perhaps we should encourage flying. There's a moth.
If we end up having to kill this thing, I think that flying would be a good plan. If it's going to fly and we need to hit it hard, I think that also being in the sky, useful.
Mars, what were you saying?
Oh, I was saying perhaps we should stay on the grounds for now, but have the option for aerial.
Quite a good strategy. Both.
At this point, unless anyone has any further points to make, you would be whisked off towards the teleportation chamber within Enclave HQ. Brought through the grand, arcing, almost cathedral-like interior of Enclave headquarters, you are brought to a small, dark room, gleaming patterns on the walls, rounded corners, and 3 gently gleaming pads on the ground. A disembodied voice says, "Agents, please take your places atop the telepads."
Never gonna get used to
All
that
right.
voice.
See you guys on the other side, suppose.
As you take your
Nowhere to
stances,
go.
you feel your bodies start to dissociate. Starting with your toes and reaching all the way up to your eyes, each piece of you tingling away to nothingness, almost pleasurable as a sensation. like an icy hot pack that doesn't actually hurt, until it hits your eyes, at which point your vision explodes into multicolor gossamer confetti and you swirl in nothingness until it stops and you find yourselves in a windswept area with your hair blowing about your faces and the fallen, mossy, overgrown pieces of the ruin surrounding you. The ruin's wall is at your back, and you can see it has an old arched entranceway almost crumbling away directly behind you. The entire length of the thing is pretty substantial. It's, like I said, a perfect circle, and it has a diameter like almost the size of a soccer field, like quite a big ruin. And the entire interior of it is strewn with rubble, fallen columns, like heavy boulders, old pieces of carven statuary broken into a million large pieces. And above all of it, vaguely on the wind from towards the center of the ruin, you can hear a piping voice cackling nondescriptly on the wind. Immediate actions upon entering, we will begin with Mars. Fire away, RC. What do you want to do?
I would like to look around my surroundings.
Absolutely. Any other things you are specifically looking for besides what I have mentioned?
I'm looking to see if there's anyone else here with us,
Absolutely.
like nearby.
A quick look around indicates that in the ruins you don't see any other individuals, but directly behind you, through that archway that I was describing, that's the entrance to the ruins, you can see that there is a barely used path that trails out and over the hills into the distance, extremely far away on what looks like the outcropping of a distant mountain. You can see a thin line of smoke, probably from maybe a town or an outpost of some kind. As RC is looking around, actions from Cullen.
Cullen is immediately going to look for, like, you said there were a number of, like, destroyed statues. Cullen's going to look for, like, the face of one of those statues and just, like, caress it, like, what a disgrace to the history of this land. Truly, this place must have been magnificent once before.
The face that you find is almost the size of your entire body. The features are only barely made out. Have you ever seen one of those carven medieval chess pieces that have like the...
Yeah.
Like, it has like that sort of aesthetic to it. With the flat features and like the helmet that's merged with the head and kind of like the war face, you know?
Mm-hmm. He doesn't care. He's very into, like, this had meaning at one point and, like, likely to some god of some kind. And so he's like, this is unfortunate that this happened.
Absolutely. And as Cullen proceeds briefly into the ruins to find the piece of statuary he's looking for, Siri, actions from you.
Yeah, I think Siri's immediately going to look in the direction that, everybody heard the laugh from. See if there's anything she can make out, if that, like, either I think it's probably too far away to actually see a person, or they're hiding behind it, but, like, magic shooting into the air, or a pathway leading up to it, anything like that.
So your ears are far better than anyone else's here, and because of that, not only do you have a very good idea of where the person is, they're almost directly at the center of the ruin, currently obstructed from view by rubble, but you also can hear what they're saying. They, in a sing-song voice, their voice cracking at almost every turn, are reciting the lines of the poem without stop, just time after time after time.
Is there any sort of inflection that is noteworthy? Any words that are spoken louder or softer than the others?
They say the word moth every time in a quiet, low voice. So, for example, if they're going, "There once was a moth who was scared of the night," like that. Every time they hit moth, their voice goes low.
Okay, good to know. Okay. I think just Siri's going to point out to the rest of the group. I believe the poet, is in the center of the ruins, so we should perhaps head there, but also not head there to make sure that we're careful.
Any responses to this, starting with RC?
I don't think it's wise to push to something that we are unaware of. we don't know what this guy is capable of. We don't know what's waiting down there for us. I think we should think of a plan and go with the best course of action.
Any responses from either Siri or Colin?
Planning definitely sounds like a good thing, good way to go about this. Does Cullen see the smoke that you had mentioned?
Colin has not looked like far afield of the ruin yet, so he would not happen to have seen it yet. He would see that RC had been looking over shoulder towards the outside of the ruin, but is standing at such an angle that he cannot see it himself.
Okay. Colin is going to take a glance kind of towards that direction to see what maybe RC might have seen.
Yeah. Taking a couple steps over, he comes into view of that very thin, distant line of smoke as well.
So, is the line of smoke, does it look like it's approaching the ruin in any way?
It does
or is
not.
it just kind of, floating up?
An excellent question. It looks like it's emitting from a static source and then tapering off with the wind into the distance.
Okay. It's not, approaching anything in particular? It's not beating towards the sun or anything?
Not that you can see.
Okay.
Any follow-ups from Siri after RC's response?
My only concern is that we were told that planning might not be a luxury we can afford.
Responses from RC to this point?
While this is true, we don't want to go into a fight blinded. I know you're not much of a fighter, so I can't defend myself and you at the same time if this foe is very formidable.
True. I have an action for next time it gets around to my turn.
By Arcturus' thunder, I shall keep you safe through this endeavor.
I quite appreciate both of your concerns.
That's a good enough segue as any into Siri's next action. What would she like to do?
My next action?
Yeah.
I have a long shot plan. Okay.
Those are steaming hands. I like it.
So, for Viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Viewpoint is one of the illusionist ability that allows the illusionist to see the world through the eyes of a chosen target.
Mm-hmm.
It does not state I need to see the target, but
That's
simply
true.
focus intently on them. Now, I'm going to ask that I can do it with Poet Wizard Man. We didn't ask for his name. I don't know if the Enclave knows it.
Would we have been given that?
The Enclave did not specify one.
Okay. If that is too much of a stress because we really don't know anything about this guy.
No, you have it. You can hear him.
Okay, awesome. I had a potential consequence, but it was going to be awful, so thank God. Okay, then I guess I'll just Siri will kind of close her eyes and think and try to focus on the words that the poet is chanting in order to see what he's seeing.
You look through his eyes to see a pair of old hands in a little butterfly shadow puppet. He's playing with his hands in front of his eyes and rocking back and forth. You see every exposed inch of skin is written on in black ink, the same lines over and over again. You see that every scrap of ground around him has had its grass pulled up, and the same lines are written over and over again. And you can see that past his hands, his clothes, every inch of them has been written on with black ink, the same lines over and over again.
That might not be summoning something. It might just be going batshit crazy.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask. Do I get the sense that this butterfly / rocking / the writing of all the words, if any of those are components of this magic to unleash this thing, or is it just a kind of a crazy?
Honestly, you do not know for sure just at first blush. Okay. You'd have to investigate further. But at the very least, he is completely unarmed and he is sitting in place. He is in no state to defend himself or anyone else.
Am I able to talk as I do this?
Yeah, you can describe what you're seeing.
Okay, yeah. I will, not to take up time.
Of course, yeah.
In
that case, both Cullen and RC would get a blow-by-blow of what I just described from Siri's mouth as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, to me, based on my personal religious experience, it sounds quite possible this man is performing a ritual of some kind. The Moth may very well be referring to himself. He may be channeling some old dark magic within himself, becoming the entity. This may not be nearly as easy a mission as we had first thought.
It's also to note that he says moth differently than all the other words.
It's even more pronounced when you're viewpointing him as well. He will pause his rocking to say moth and then go back to it. Any comments or follow-ups from RC after hearing this information from Siri?
This very well could be a ritual. I think that I may have read about this back home in our library. It's familiar, but I can't quite place it. I think we should head closer to this person, but not too close. To
Let me interrogate this
imminent
further.
danger.
Let me interrogate this further for a moment. What does RC currently think is going on? Like, what is she guessing at the moment?
She's guessing that this man has something he's regretting in his life and trying to get a second chance.
That's such an... What makes you think that?
He's all alone by himself. And does he have kids? Does he have a wife, a husband, partner, anybody, family? He's all alone. And if I were him, I'd want to do over too. If I were that old and lonely. Absolutely no one.
As RC is thinking this, she feels a tear come involuntarily to her own eye. Very brief. Like, she can brush it. It's easy to resist, but it's impromptu that this tear comes to her eye very briefly. Now,
is it something that either myself or Siri would have noticed?
Siri would have, for sure.
I don't think Siri would immediately assume that this was magical in any way. Like, I think Siri would just be like, "Oh, I don't know RC very well." Maybe
Of course,
cries.
yeah. It's an interesting thing, especially for this imposing, powerful figure.
Yeah, like I think it would, like Siri would take a note of it,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I don't think she would immediately be like, "Oh, this is some sort of weird magic thing."
Naturally, yeah.
I think she'd just be like, "Oh."
And of course, it's not even necessarily that, though.
Yeah.
Magic, perhaps. And Colin would not immediately notice it. Does Colin have any follow-ups to RC's point? And obviously, the thing that I just interrogated on was more internal. This is off of the former point.
Yeah. I don't think Colin would have any follow-ups towards that specifically.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of be like, okay, so we're all kind of in agreement then. Let's make our way towards this dark poet. See what might truly be going on and put a stop to it if we can.
If there are no contentions, then Colin would begin to proceed. Do RC and Siri want to accompany him?
Certainly.
Of course.
As we're walking, Siri just wants to keep an eye out for any glowing magical letters or or booby traps or things like that.
Naturally. As you're proceeding, you do start to notice pieces of the ruins and sections of ground that have one line of the poem written out. You know, a patch of bare ground that has the sun shook his head and was hidden away, or another piece of statue that has that poor little moth wished to fly in the light.
Does it seem like there's an even amount of each of the lines, or is one line written
Yes,
together?
there are even amounts of each of the lines. Excellent question. And as you get closer to him, the number of lines becomes more and more tight. And as you come into sight of the piece of rubble he's hiding behind, not only can you all hear his voice very clearly now, especially the emphasis on moth, but the ground, the rubble, every single surface that is writable is so covered in ink that it becomes hard to determine the color of what's underneath it.
What? Can we investigate the ink really quick?
Yeah, how do you want to do so? Just bend over and take a look, or are you going to touch your finger to it? What are you going to do?
Is there a stick?
Let me think
I don't
about
think
that.
I want to touch my finger.
There's not a lot of trees around. There's a rock. You can grab all sorts of rocks.
Yeah, I'll huck a rock at one of them
Yeah.
quietly. Can I quietly chuck a rock?
Into grass, that would be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it would make like a dull thump, but it's windy. Does that mean that you're avoiding stepping on the ink as you're walking?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll say yes.
Because in that case, there's, like I said, it's covering the ground, so you have to tiptoe at times to proceed. As Cullen and RC would see Siri doing so, are they going to do so as well, or are they going to inquire what do they want to do? I'll get to the rock in a moment.
Cullen's going to avoid touching the ink, but he's going to do his own little investigation into it. Could Cullen smell the ink? Like, lean down and,
Yeah.
smell a sample of it?
Yeah, he can, and it is a very distinctive smell. Okay, so if you've ever pulled an all-nighter in the woods, do you know that smell when it's about to be dawn? It's kind of a weird...
Yes.
You know that like smell of like dew and woodsiness, and it's really distinctive. I don't know a better way to put it. Like musty air that's becoming less musty. It smells precisely like that.
Mm.
And as you are investigating pre-rock, RC, do you have any other actions now that you've seen Siri tiptoeing about trying to dodge ink and Cullen trying to smell it? What would RC like to be doing? Would she, for example, like to be avoiding the ink?
So you would love to be avoiding the ink, and she's trying to see if she can sense anything in the ink and any like emotional stuff from the guy, from the old man.
Now, every time RC looks at the ink, she feels her muscles like involuntarily tense up. You know what I mean? Like when you look at the face of someone who's really mad at you and you're like ready for a fight. You know what I mean? And additionally, even though he's obviously talking the entire time, she's starting to hear the lines in her own voice in her own head, as well as in his voice in her ears. Now, jumping back towards that rock, as you toss it into the ink is wet, first of all, you notice, and as such, the rock picks up a little ink as it rolls, smudging some of the lines. For the first time since you got here, you hear the voice pause for a second. He coughs. And then he goes back to his verses. But when the moth tasted the wind of the day.
Can I?
What would happen if we cleaned all this ink up, you guys?
Is the ink alive in some way?
Not that you can immediately see, though as RC says this, for the second time you hear the voice stops, and you hear the kind of like disturbances from behind the piece of rubble he's behind of the old man trying to get to his feet. Any responses of any of you to either what RC said or to this action?
Before he's able to get up, I want to touch one of my thunderbolts, like just a piece of fulgurite, to the ink. See what happens to it.
The ink starts to race up the fulgurite.
Oh, concerning. I'm just gonna kind of chuck it to the side because I don't want sentient ink touching me. Towards where the poet is.
Yeah.
Just kind of toss it to the side, no.
And Siri, did you have a thing you wanted to do?
It's another convoluted thing.
Let me check in.
Magic is all about convolution.
Let me quickly check in with RC first, because I think she'd have a more prompt action. RC, is there anything you want to do as, one, you hear the man starting to rise after what you said, and two, you see Cullen chuck away his lightning bolt that had ink rising up it?
There's something strange about this ink. Maybe, like I said before, I want to see what would happen if we wiped it away. But I see he's moving now, which is a little concerning because we don't know what his next action is going to be or what he's capable of.
Absolutely.
So what would you guys like to do?
I'll give you the opportunity to speak out of character if you want. As Zach knows, with players who know the game better, I'm pretty strict about this, but when you're new to the game, it's fine to take a moment to talk out of character now and then if you want.
Mm-hmm. So, when RC was doing the most recent insight and she started hearing the voice in her own head speaking the lines. When he started saying it again, right after she had said something aloud, he was on the second to last line. Did he only have enough time to finish the poem once more through before he started rising?
It's a good question, but I can't answer that because it's not your character.
Fair. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, we would have heard him, like, stop and start it back up again.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yes, in that case, that's a very good point. You are correct.
So he would have only had time to finish out the poem one more time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other things that you want to discuss out of character for the moment before we dive back in?
Everybody be careful.
I think some shit is going down, and we need to put an end to it now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mars, what was that?
Does he have any family of his own or no?
You have no idea. Okay, in that case, let's drop back in. Does RC have any other actions that she would like to take?
She's going to take a defensive stance just in case.
Okay, is she positioning herself near any of her teammates while doing so?
Yes.
Either one in particular?
She's going to be next to Siri.
Absolutely. As she moves into position, Siri, you wanted to try something convoluted.
Yes, I did. All right. Here's my argument, and I will give you a downside if it's too much. So, again with viewpoint. The wording is see the world through the eyes of the chosen target.
Yeah.
Can I take that line metaphorically?
Give me the energy work. Like, how would you make it work differently? How does the ability normally feel to Siri, and what are you going to do both physically or emotionally to make it do something different?
So, goal here is to maybe go through a memory or tap into some emotion to get motive/mean. So why he's doing what he's doing, and how he plans on doing it. Because there's something about this poem, I don't know exactly what the details are.
Yep.
Usually viewpoint, I think Siri probably closes her eyes and sinks kind of back into herself in like a meditative state and allows this person energy to come forward and see it. My argument, because I think this is a giant thing. I don't know if that's going to be the payoff, but my brain says this is big. I would allow... So when I'm hoping to search through this guy's memories, I will allow him to search through mine.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay. So my last question is, what are you looking for?
Siri in particular, I think, is looking for when this poem came to him and in what state was he in? Was he with other people? Was he thinking of... but like we know that he's supposed to be... We're presuming he's lonely. We know he's an outcast. If that had something to do with it, potentially what his interpretation of Moth is, that's not really related to a memory, but I know the word Moth is important to him, or the spell in some way. So sort of things like that.
All right. I love the way you're approaching this. Here's what you would get. Your eyes are closed. You would first hear in your mind, in his voice, though his creaking old, there once was a moth sort of voice becomes more level and younger as the line progresses. And so you hear, there once was a boy who was scared of the night. And you see, through viewpoint, a very different perspective. Not a towering adult perspective, but younger. Probably based on your sensory, like an older child. And you can see that...
12?
Something around this, maybe a little younger. And you can see that this perspective is looking out onto a very different scene than the one that is in front of you. You can see that he's looking out from what looks like a root cellar or a basement of some kind, looking out over beautiful rolling farmlands. And you can see that there are people in the farmlands working the fields, younger folk running about, both helping and playing in turn. But as he is looking, the cellar door is slammed in front of his face. And your viewpoint breaks. Ciri's eyes would be forced open as her ability is ended preemptorily.
Okay. Very interesting. Did I get any more of the poem with the changed words?
You heard that poor little boy, and his voice goes to probably the age he was. That poor little boy. And then end.
Very interesting. Do I get a sense that he, like, when I snap out of viewpoint, has the current version of him changed in any way? We know that he was trying to get up.
Yeah. Well, you have seen him shuffle around, or not shuffle fully around the corner into view, but he's started to move around the rubble and has stooped. You see his arm come into view as he picks up the lightning bolt that Cullen threw away in panic. The lightning bolt is now completely covered in ink, and you can see that the old hand picks it up and brings it up to his face just out of view to examine it. Obviously, I'll bring RC back up to date when Mars is back. In the meantime, though, does either Cullen or Ciri have follow-up actions?
I want to look in really quickly to what the Thunderbolt specifically does. Give me one moment.
Mm-hmm.
This is for that's for that class. Okay.
If you want, I can give a summary. It's very high magic damage with great speed and good range, but it can be redirected if there's a more prominent target.
Yeah, so what is the activation range? Like, from where Cullen is to where this guy is, could Cullen activate the Thunderbolt
That's such
while
a
it is
cool
in his
question.
hand?
So, normally, I would say that probably every time he's ever used one of these, Cullen would have activated it from touch, right? Mm-hmm. What would it feel like to turn on a Thunderbolt remotely? Give me the energy work.
So, to turn it on remotely?
Yeah.
Or to turn it just like in general, just remotely?
To turn on remotely, as opposed to by touch.
In this case, like, basically, any time that he's kind of like channeling the divinity of the god that granted him the power that he wields, it's almost as though this, like kind of like how when your like muscles twitch, right? Mm-hmm. You can kind of feel the like electric charge going out of whack in your arm, right? That kind of feeling, just kind of pushing through his arm, up his hand, and out his fingertips, and just kind of focusing that energy towards where the Thunderbolt would be.
Okay, and my second question is, normally you'd be able to do this without even thinking, right? Mm-hmm. It's automatic to you.
Is that what I get through the ink?
Yeah, what is he thinking and feeling here?
He's definitely very upset that this guy is like holding this like corrupted Thunderbolt, because like it's basically a direct affront to his god. So he's definitely very upset about that, but he's also thinking, I need to get that thing away from him as soon as possible. So just like either get it out of his hand or blow it, and getting it out of his hand sounds a lot harder right now than just blowing it up.
Okay, in that case...
And getting it out of his hand sounds a little counterproductive, because that would mean I would have to grab it, and then I would be covered in weird, wood-smelling ink.
Indeed. In this case, as you activate, you feel your fingers tense up as that familiar sensation rushes through, but this time it kind of locks your hand in a way that you're not familiar with. You can see that the lightning bolt sparks, but in a different way than you're used to, and the man drops it, clearly alarmed. Rather than falling to the ground, though, the bolt hovers in midair, and you can see it sparks and skips and scuffs, and smoke and haze kind of skims off of it. And you can see that blinking lights start flickering in it. Not like fireworks, but like stars in a night sky.
Question: Can Cullen see the smoke from before? Has it progressed at all
It
into
would
any
be
particular direction?
it would be well over his shoulder behind him. So if you want to like turn while your arm is locked, you should be able to give it a look.
Yeah, just like get a quick estimation of like, is that moving towards here and or the sun? Like, is that smoke moving towards a destination, or is it just kind of rising in the distance?
The best guess that you have, obviously, it's from a very far distance. It does not look like it has moved or gotten thicker in any way.
Okay. Yeah, like after like getting that notion, just kind of like
Yeah.
snap my focus back to the old man.
And you can see that the bolt is as though it has struck something. Even though it has not moved from its position in midair, it is starting to dissolve. Now, actions from Siri during this little exchange here, and then we're going to jump back to RC.
I muted myself, sorry. The thing I think Siri is going to try to do is, coming out of this sort of vision that she had, she's going to hold out her hand and cast Veneer and make the old... Like, I don't think... If she was using viewpoint, she only saw his point of view, is what I'm assuming. So she's going to try to make his hands look like they did in the memory. Try to make them look young like the boy.
That's quite interesting. I'm going to give you a moment to consider this, but again, veneer, you often are painting the thing that you're creating, and it's often done at quite close range. You are pretty close to him, like close enough that this is not impossible. But think about how you would be trying to paint the one hand that you can see from like several paces away. While we're considering that, RC, to catch you up, Mars. After Zechariah threw that thunderbolt, the man
character.
Yeah. Oh my God, Jesus Christ! I'm so used to calling you Zechariah from the old
I'm
days.
aware.
Pardon me. After Cullen threw the thunderbolt, the old man had stopped to pick it up, though still out of sight of everything besides his hand. The thunderbolt had been completely coated in ink, but then Zechariah had remotely activated it, like to shock it, and he had let it go, from which point it hovered and dissolved into nothing. Siri also did something, but it's not something that RC would have seen besides Siri closing her eyes. At this point,
I wanted to let you finish. You used Zechariah again.
God, did I really? Excuse me. Which child of mine are you again? So
I'm
anyway,
pretty certain that Zechariah is the only character that I've played previously with you.
I think that is true. I apologize.
I don't think that you've personally experienced Ultra. So
yeah, I have not.
Yeah, you
So,
don't have mental.
anyways,
just like something else.
Of course. Now that Cullen has done so, whenever, oh, pardon, Mars, if you need a moment, then fire away. But whenever you're back, I'm going to ask you for your actions now that you have an idea of what is going on. Just let me know when you're good to go. In the meantime, okay, good. Sick.
Awesome.
Now that you have an idea of what's been going on in your absence, the inked lightning bolt is now kind of dissolving into a hazy, almost night sky looking mist. What would RC like to do having seen this unfold in front of her?
Can she speak to the guy? Like, is she in like range?
Oh,
for him to
easily.
hear her?
Yeah, you're like a room length away.
Okay, so. Okay, sir, can you hear me?
There's a pause, and then, though you can still only see his hand around the rubble, you hear, "Tasted the wind of the day." What do you want to say from here?
Is what's bothering you your hands? Like, are you cursed?
The sun shook his head. And you can see that his other hand joins the one that you can see, and he makes the little butterfly shadow puppet thing and kind of flaps it in view of you all, almost theatrically.
Robbie, I really hope that what happens comes through in post. When you said sun shook his head, like the acoustics that your microphone picked up changed, and it had this like crazy like like room reverb to it. Like room reverb that like the voice currently speaking should not have.
Let's see if I can get it again. RC, do you have any other follow-ups to this?
Do bad things happen whenever you touch something?
The little flapping butterfly thing slows a little bit. And then you hear softly, and was hidden away. And you can see that now that same dissolving night-like mist that the lightning bolt turned into falls from his hands. And you can see it starting
never good.
You can see it starting to pool on the ground, mixing with the lightning bolt mist as well, as almost like a small isolated cloud just around the piece of rubble that he is behind. It's getting closer to you all, but it's spreading very slowly.
Question about what RC is doing.
Mm-hmm.
The poet, when he is responding, his words are staying the same, his inflection's changing slightly. What is his face doing? Does it look like he's comprehending anything that is saying? Does it look like he's trying to communicate what he can't?
So he seems to be deliberately concealing his face because you have only seen his hands. He has only reached his hands around the rubble.
Okay.
Any follow-up from RC before we proceed with Cullen and Siri, now that this night-like miasma is starting to spread? And it's not just dark, by the way. It's quite beautiful, filled with sparkling stars and cosmic dust, a combination of purples and oranges and whites. But it is still clearly a magic of some kind sourced from him. And the way that it spreads is reminiscent of some sort of toxic gas.
She throws an acorn at the mist on the ground, the liquid and stuff.
Oh, this is like from your homeland then? Yeah. What would you want this to do?
I want to see how it reacts to organic matter.
And as the acorn enters the mist, you can see that what looks like, at first it looks like dust, but then you can see something much more clear. The silhouettes of moths are swirling around the acorn. They're very, very contained, almost like a little tornado, tiny tornado. And then they vanish, and the acorn is gone.
Okay, guys, so don't touch the weird liquid mist shit.
Yeah, I wasn't particularly planning to.
It's spread a couple feet further. Actions from Cullen at this point after RC's exchange.
I want to see this guy's face. I'm gonna try and pull something fun here. How dense is the ink around the piece of rubble that the guy is hidden behind?
Coated.
Coated. Okay. Is there room to kind of like start a rush towards it? Like to start kind of running towards it a little bit?
You could catch 3 footsteps.
With 3 footsteps. Okay.
Yeah.
How many Talaria air steps would I be able to get?
Off of 3 full sprint running steps?
Yeah.
In this context, let's call it 2.
2, okay. So is it at all possible for me to jump off of the ground, use 1 Talaria step to, with the Thunderhammer, use in channeling Thunderclap, slam into the rubble, and then jump off of that step and use the second one to bounce back, maybe anything like into safety forward.
I see. Okay, so running forward, step up, thunderclap into hammer strike to destroy the rubble, and then step out back to safety, something like that.
Yeah.
Since Thunderclap also partially launches you backwards to some degree, I'm going to say this is especially doable. It would let you clear the ink at the very least. Does that sound okay?
Okay, good. Yeah, that's what I was just hoping to clear the ink. I want to see this dude's face because there has to be something going on there.
Cullen leaps into action and takes a couple of sprinting steps towards the rubble before his winged sandals start to carry him up into the air. Before he finishes resolving the action, any follow-ups to this or other things from Siri?
Yes, I was continuing series actions from before. Changing, similar idea, changing strategy slightly.
Yeah.
Number one goal is distraction here, of distracting the poet, which at this point I'm presuming is some sort of like conduit for the ink in some way. But, so Siri's going to take out her fan, which I'm not going to flick out right now. I'm going to flick out. And start like carefully walking kind of around him slowly. Where she steps, this is the illusion part, is from where she steps, it spreads. The ground and the scenery around it is turning into the scenery from the vision that she had.
Ooh, that's so cool.
Preserving the ink because I want to make sure that my friends don't step in it.
Yeah.
But as she's doing that, fanning, which the fan is able to magically draw the eyes of non-allies, so kind of using that as a distraction, and sort of talking to him and going, I know you, boy. I know what you want, even though I don't think I know what he wants, but trying to, like, draw him into my...
Since you normally, like, paint a veneer, are you, like, when you said the fan, since you're doing a veneer on a pretty decent chunk of space, do you want to be using the fan to help paint it?
Yeah, I think also, since I do want the fan, because I'm a bit nervous here, kind of as she's walking, I was thinking it was coming from her feet, so kind of dragging her feet along the ground to initially start it, and then using the fan to sort of push that ink, or not ink, paint, we'll call it paint to not get confusing, across the ground to help spread it.
Lovely. That's perfect. Could not ask for better. And RC, before we resolve, now that you've seen Cullen beginning to leap into action, Siri beginning to cast magic and move around the boulder to get a better vantage point on the old man, do you have any actions of your own? They are currently both standing clear of the mist, at the very least.
Yes. I am going to reposition myself. So I'm standing clear of the mist. I'm going to stand with Siri. And I'm going to have my shield out just in case.
So, since Halfpike and Shield is assigned to the Thane, you would not actually have a shield on your person. Are you talking more about your hammer, or are you trying to go for something that like your character would have from their homeland?
Something that my character would have from their homeland.
Sure. Normally we go about that through a system called common items, but I think that for this purpose, it's fine to have something out for the for the time being. That should work out all right. Now in this case, as Zechariah leaps into action. My God, I did it again, didn't I? I am a moron, my lordy. It's sometime I will get it. It's been too long.
It is taking an extra step of thought for me not to call my own
exactly.
Zechariah.
Thank you for making me feel better about being a bonehead. Now, leaping into action, striking the ruin, and with the thunderclap plus your hammer, it is obliterated.
Must be a very interesting set of events for an outside observer. Just like Siri walking up, saying, "I know who you are, boy."
And as you leap backwards, looking over your shoulder, you notice two things. First of all, and this is something that Siri and RC would see as well, the old man's hands have been brought to his face immediately. His eyes are poking over them, but you can see nothing more than his eyes. Second of all, the rubble, as it burst away, revealing him, is completely blocked from even touching him. The mist that now exudes from his hands has cocooned around him for the moment that the blast occurred. And though it quickly seeps back to the ground around him, it leaves him without a scratch. You notice also that his eyes are firmly locked on Siri. Even though Cullen just exploded the rubble next to him, he doesn't even blink or flinch in that direction. He is fully focused on the illusionist. Now, a follow-up action from Cullen. What would he like to do now that he has cleared the ink again?
So, what's the weather like? Is it a clear day?
Clear but windy.
Clear but windy, okay. Does this mist seem affected by the wind at all? Like, is it, like, moving with it in any capacity?
It does, but it is sluggish. Like, it's heavier than it should be.
Okay, so, like, it kind of seems like it needs to be willed into a location. It won't just kind of spread of its own.
That seems to be a fair guess.
Okay. So my idea was I was going to use storm brewing to, like, kill the air and just kind of make things stop. And that might not be an awful idea.
Do you need a moment to think about it?
I might be able to help you with that.
Yeah, maybe just a minute to think about it and, like, just read storm brewing a little closer really quick.
Siri, do you have a follow-up action?
My action was going to be sort of in a similar vein to Cullen of trying to separate the poet and the mist/smoke surrounding him. Siri was planning on trying to, like, fan it away with some sort of, like, extra magical boost. If Cullen is hoping to do the same thing, maybe lock eyes, like, kind of, like, head bob towards the mist.
Yeah.
And have both of our get rid of the mist strategies go at the same time.
Totally. In that case, you can absolutely, like, catch each other's eye, and so you can do the little head bob that she was indicating.
Question. I feel like Cullen would have seen the acorn getting dissolved by the moths, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is that a fair? Yeah, okay. So, would it be fair to assume that, like, there needs to be a mass of the mist for it to be a problem? Like, if it was dispersed, it wouldn't be awful, or is that a bit of a jump?
Seems reasonable, but can't confirm.
Yeah. Okay. So, what is the degree to which I can change the weather with storm brewing?
You have actually a lot of ability to do so, but it can take kind of a long paired action if you're doing something ridiculous, and as well as a very involved one. Like, if you wanted to make it snow here, that would take some work, but would be achievable.
But, like, could I like manipulate the air pressure in a certain region?
Air pressure is doable. We actually had that happen on the last mission.
Really? Because, like, my thinking is, if I can massively increase the air pressure around this, it will cause the mist to, like, actually not just generate from him, but actively make contact with him.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of my thinking at the moment.
Well, think about what paired action would... Oh, pardon?
Oh, no, I'm muttering to myself. You're all good.
Yeah, think about what like, action would be conducive to that. Because, again, storm brewing is about, like, a longer, like, a slightly longer scale active, like, invocation of it. It's like a dance is a good way of looking at it. But you can do other stuff as well. While you are considering, RC, jumping back to you, even though Siri and Cullen are convening about this, to your eyes there's something much more important. Namely, the old man with his little butterfly mask currently crossing his face. His eyes are locked on Siri, but you can see that from his fingers as they, like, twitch. Remember, his fingers have those verses written on them. You can see that there is phantasmal moth wings emerging from both of them that are definitely not actually part of his body. And each time he kind of flaps, those little moth wings get a little bit bigger. Any actions that you would like to take?
I would like to inform my teammates of this discovery, and I would like to do diplomacy, since she has plenty of experience with diplomacy coming from, her kingdom and everything. So
What would you like to say?
She would like to say, speak now. You need to speak so I can help you. If you don't speak or say anything or do anything in a way that I can help you, then you'll be stuck like this for the rest of your life. And I know you don't want that. You don't want to be like this. I know in your heart you want to have a life, enjoy some part of your life before you die.
And as she is saying this, the rest of you see the moth growing from his hands like a bubble being blown from a bubble wand. As RC reaches the end of her little sentence, the moth figure emerges in whole from his hands, and you can see that its body is made of shifting night sky, beautiful and colorful and winking with light. It's almost brighter than the day around you, though probably that is mostly because of the contrast with the inky blackness of the background of its body. It flits out from his hands, which are still covering his face, large, like as large as any of you. And you can see it kind of gently looms up in front of both Siri and RC. And of note, where the sun hits it, instead of it casting a shadow, it casts mist of the same kind we have described. And the mist immediately begins to eat away at the grass that was under it. Now, as this is happening, actions from Siri.
Okay. General, trying to figure it out. Does it seem like the mist, ink, all that nonsense is the same being as the poet, or does it seem like they're separate and have separate intentions?
They seem to have separated, though it emerged from him.
Okay. Because I had plan A, this changes things. Okay. I think I'm just going to stick with it. Kind of jumping off of where RC left it, of saying, we can help you, things like that. Siri's going to, with her fan, try to fan away the mist as she walks closer to the poet. Kind of as she does, saying, we know what you want, boy. We can help you. Let us help you. And trying to get close enough to him to touch him.
As she begins to proceed, the second the fan disturbs the mist, you see that the moth gives a flit of its wings, and a small billow of mist goes rumbling towards both Siri and RC. Starting with RC, reactions to this.
She jumps up and she glides backwards. Wait, am I close enough to Siri as well?
Yes, you are quite close to her.
Okay, so I grab Siri, like this, and I jump up and I glide us backwards away from the mist.
Yeah, double plus might and 6'2" frame is going to do that. As Siri is whisked backwards, what would she like to be doing?
Can I look through the mist's eyes?
Viewpoint is on cooldown. You'll have to wait a little more to try something like that.
Okay.
That is a fantastic idea, though. I like your thing. I like your thought process.
I'll do it later then. Shoot, I don't think there's not anything I can think of fast enough, because I feel like this is like a sudden thing.
It is very, very quick, and also you are disoriented from being bundled away. RC, as you are gliding backwards, are you trying to land on like a slightly higher elevation thing, like a piece of rubble, or do you want to be landing on grass or behind a piece of cover?
I want to still have the sky in my vision. So maybe in the grass area where it's safe.
Yeah.
Where
Absolutely.
I have a question as
Sure.
well. So, for like spell casting,
Hmm.
is it possible to come up with like our own spells? But
Yes.
like for me, I would be like, I'd come up with my own spells. Like they either rhyme or something. I don't know.
Well,
Okay.
what I would recommend is, in addition to the Thunderbird abilities, there's a mechanic
Mm-hmm.
called manifesting, which is directly related to the arcane stat.
Okay.
I think it's going to be in your copy. I think it's going to be somewhere on like page 23 or 25, somewhere in that range. And it has a
Okay.
picture of a woman firing a lightning bolt out of her hand. If you want to read more about it, but basic idea is with manifesting, you pitch a spell that you think it would be fitting for your character to know based on your background. And based on like your theming. However, it does have to be like substantially weaker than a class ability. And because of that, they can be good, but they have to be more like utility things that you use to fill in the gaps between what your class specializes in. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So yes, you can absolutely pitch your own spells.
It seems
Okay.
like your copy and mine are roughly the same. The PDF page for me is page 27
Awesome. Thank you very much. While you
for
are
manifest.
considering that, RC, Cullen, any actions from you as the moth
Uh,
emerges, whisk of smoke, and then the two are retreated?
so seeing that the mist kind of comes out where a shadow would be. Okay.
And is also
So
dispensed from the moth's wing, seemingly as an attack
mhm,
or deterrent.
yeah. So it'd probably be good to keep it from casting a shadow, right? Okay, so my original plan was to like generate the air pressure, but instead I am going to basically begin this like not incredibly intricate, but like very definitive in style, spinning the thunder hammer around Cullen's head while spinning counter to the direction of its
Oh,
spin
that's so
to
interesting.
generate these just mass like cumulus clouds, like things that will stop light from coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I love that. And as he is doing this like double clockwise, like clockwise and counterclockwise spinning, anything else he wants to be doing as he is casting this storm brewing?
He's going to have a thunderbolt at the ready.
Yep. Now, as he is doing this, the other two, RC and Siri, can see that clouds start to form where previously there had been blue sky. RC would know a storm brewing when she sees one. Tapping back to you two, beginning with Siri, after being whisked away, you're still in eye shot, but you're a much safer distance away. You can see that the moth is retreating into his hands from whence it came.
I guess Siri's gonna shout out to him. I guess. Are his eyes still locked on me?
Yes, they are, though they're quite far away, and they don't seem to be as riveted as they were when you were actively moving your fan.
Okay. Sort of shout out to him. We know you want to see the day. Don't you see you're stopping that? Where's the light now?
This is perfectly timed with the clouds. As the ruin is cast into the daytime shadow, RC, do you...
One
Oh,
more.
yep.
One more.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just thought of it.
That's
now.
fine.
You were trapped all your life. Don't trap yourself now.
And RC, do you
That's
have...
kind of a...
do you have any actions to add to this, or as Siri is doing this?
Yes. Siri is correct. You must fight for what you want. You have to fight for what you believe in. My people, we never back down from a fight. Ever. When we know that there's something wrong and there's something right, you have to fight for what's right. And if you don't, nothing's never gonna change. You'll be stuck repeating the same cycle over and over and over again. I know you're tired. I know you're sleepy. I know you are just want to give up. But don't want to at the same time. But if you're not making an effort to help us to help you, what are your best chances of survival? You're just gonna die here and waste away with no one giving a fuck about you, and you not giving a fuck about anyone. Is that really how you want to live your life? Just to wither and die like an old dust bunny? No, of course not. You want to live. So I'm telling you to fucking live.
You see that his hands are digging into his face, deep enough that they're bleeding. You can see that his whole body is shaking. And you hear him finally say, weakly, almost plaintively, "Make it stop." And as he does so, you can see the moth bloom from his hands, much bigger than last time. Last time it was the size of one of you. Now, it swells in size to the size of a hang glider, if not bigger. And it also blooms out much faster than previous. Fortunately, thanks to Cullen's actions, it does not cast a shadow this time. And as such, it doesn't spontaneously cover a huge chunk of the ruin in mist. The old man, as he says this and the moth emerges from his hands, sinks to his knees and curls up into a tight fetal position, his hands still clutching his face and digging into his own skin. Actions, starting with RC, then to Ciri, then to Cullen. What does RC want to do as the moth emerges following her speech?
She would like to attempt a cleansing spell, but she would need the help of her two companions, because she is currently not at a status where she can do it by herself. She knows how to do it, and she has all the necessary ingredients or like necessities. She just needs a boost because her, as I said previously, her bracelets are
contain her
covering,
power.
like containing her powers, so she needs a boost.
So step one, what are the components of this cleansing spell?
She needs a powerful force of energy. So a lightning bolt. So her and Cullen would have to combine their powers. A lightning bolt. And they would need Ciri's mental abilities, like her mental energy, to amplify the physical energy. And then she would need ingredients from her pouch, like the acorn she had, the lasso on her side, and she would need
Here, I'll give no problem. I'll give you a moment to consider deeper. While RC is considering, having made her speech, what does Ciri want to do as the moth rises from the man?
This works out for me. Also another... I don't have normal ideas. Okay. Seeing that RC is clearly planning something that... Like I assume she's like deep in thought trying to figure this out. Ciri's going to take off her wizard hat, which can grant some extra magical prowess, toss it to RC in the hopes that she can use it. I don't know if it's, only one person can use it, but toss her hat, drop a smoke bomb.
Yep.
And start full sprinting, trying to get to the man.
All right. Now, in this case, RC, do you want to catch the hat that is thrown to you?
I'm going to catch the hat.
Beautiful in pink. Probably not RC's style. Lovely. It's actually really nice.
It's very nice. It's a good hat.
Very good.
Yeah.
She promptly places the hat on top of her head.
Excellent. We're going to check back in with that in a moment. But first, as your smoke bomb is deployed and you start to run forward, through the smoke that you have deployed, you can see that the moth, as it has risen from the man, swiftly, like it can turn on a dime silently, despite its size, kind of swerves down and gives a great sweep of its wing as a huge amount of its mist, its dust, goes settling down over your smoke bomb. You, by this point, are out past from that, having used the smoke bomb as an initial distraction, but you also see that your smoke bomb smoke seems to actually hold at bay the mist while it lasts. Like the two cannot coexist.
Okay.
That being said, you've sprinted out and are now diving deeper into the inked section. Are you still trying to avoid ink?
As best I can, but I think Siri's also keeping in mind, like, this is a time-based thing.
Yeah.
So she's doing her best, but I don't know how accurate she is.
Now, also, this is not perfectly even ground. You don't have an exact straight shot. There are some, like, chest-high ruins in your way if you're trying to do an exact line towards the man. How would you like to try to get across these, or do you want to try to get around them, or do you have another idea entirely?
I think trying to, in the fastest way that she can think of, I think for her it's going to be around. I don't think she's a climber. So yeah, trying as best she can to dodge any obstacles in her path, making her way to the poet.
Absolutely. Now, she makes it at least 2/3 of the way quite quickly, just as a beeline sprint. However, as the ink is getting thicker and thicker, she would inevitably touch one.
Yeah.
Like, running at this speed is like, unless if you had high skill and reflex-ish, you could probably have done it, but not in this state. And the second that she touches it, she notices a long, thin tether connecting herself to the ink section she touched, like a piece of chewing gum that she had stepped in. As she gets a little closer, her other foot would tap a little bit of ink. Again, very light touch, and again, another tether. Every time she touches ink, another tether connects to her feet, and she starts to feel them slowing her down. Before we go further, Cullen, you have completed your storm brewing, your swirling, whirling dance, resulting in some mighty, towering cumulonimbus clouds out of nowhere that completely block the sun and mute the light such that while it is still bright and day outside, there is no shadows being cast of distinction.
So, would Cullen have noticed the effect of the smoke on the mist, or is that like too far away or too hard to quite ascertain?
As Cullen is completing this process, he would see the smoke and would see Siri emerging from it, so he would see that the smoke does seem to repel the mist, at least for a short time.
So on the final spin, I want to bring the hammer all the way down to the ground and chant, Arcturus, bring the weight of the heavens upon me, to try and pull the clouds down.
That's so sick. That's so cool. And you can see, well, first of all, you can see the cloud in the sky starting to sink. That's kind of unnerving, first of all. Clouds do not move vertical. However, the tether that you kind of impose between yourself and the ground begins to be exerted. However, you feel like a catch in your body. That was an enormous expenditure. That's a powerful spell. As such, what do you want to do as an immediate follow-up after casting this?
How dense is the ink around me? I know that I was barely able to kind of clear it.
Yeah, you're in the section that is walkable, runnable. You'd touch it for sure if you were sprinting without deliberately lining it up like you did before.
Yeah. Is there enough room for me to kneel down without without touching? Okay, I'm gonna do that, and if there's space to not have it be touched by the ink, rest my thunderbolt in just kind of in the grass.
Yeah, that's fine.
Ready for when the clouds come down, I am going to smash it.
That's sick. The cloud is starting to sink at a visible rate. It's probably not going to make contact for at least another 10, 20 seconds at absolute fastest. As you are kneeling into position, let's briefly check back in with Siri before we jump back to RC. As you feel your movements starting to slow slightly, you are remember when you were initially doing that little painting of the ground with your veneer? You are back at that area. Your veneer is still there. And so you're within 5 running paces of the man. However, the little gum lines that have been like tagging your feet to the ground as you've been moving are actually substantial enough at this point that it is getting hard to move your legs forward.
Okay. So it says folding fan also can act as a, like, to block magic, like a shield with an arrow. Can I use this part of the fan to try to cut through the ink?
That's so sick.
Free myself?
Absolutely. I love that
Okay,
idea.
cool.
You see that they snap in almost like a fiddle string breaking. It doesn't make noise, but it's that same sort of like snapping tension. And after severing those on both of your feet, are you going to try to make a break for it or what here?
Yeah, I'm trying to get to the poet.
Yep. These last couple steps, you make a lot of ink contact. And you feel your feet tether and tether and tether and gum up, but you're now finally close enough to touch him. He is curled up you're in a curled up fetal, he's in a curled up fetal position on the ground with his hands covering his eyes. You can start to do something and we'll resolve it in a moment.
Okay, to start, she's just going to put her fan on the ground next to him so she can rest her knees on top of it.
Yep. And setting your knees down upon it. That's an excellent action, actually. Let's jump back over to RC. Now, do you have an idea of what... have you had a chance to think more about what components you would need for this cleansing spell?
Yes. She is going to need candle from her bag and a spark of energy to spark the candle, but not just any spark. It has to be from her. So what she's going to do, she's going to have to unleash a little bit of power. She's going to have to tap her bracelets together and just let out just a little bit more power that she needs to pull this whole thing together. And just a little bit drop of the magical fountain water from her homeland.
Now, as you are beginning to set this into motion, 2 questions for you. First of all, since this is a spell that presumably you are learning from back home or has been referenced back home, what is this cleansing spell used for back home?
It's used to purify lost souls who have lost their way, or someone who's cursed, someone who's looking for help.
Absolutely. And second of all, how many times has RC participated in this spell? Is it something she's heard about, something she's done once or twice, or something she did fairly regularly?
Something she's done ever since she could remember, since she was about 5.
Absolutely. So in that case, it has like a traditional, maybe even like not a holiday type thing, but it seems to be a cultural thing as well as a practical and magical thing. Does that sound correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Is there an incantation that goes along with it? I can give you a moment to think of something if you'd like.
Yes, that'd be nice.
Absolutely. I had a feeling that would be the case. In that case, jumping back over to Siri. Having knelt down on your fan, what would you like to do?
Siri would like to try to gently take his hands away from his face.
And as her...
Colin would have a reaction to her getting that close to him.
Yep.
Knowing what this mist can do, Colin is going to shout, "Don't touch him until the clouds arrive."
Her hand would be part of the way to it. What do you want to do in response? Colin's voice is strong enough that you can hear it very clearly despite the wind.
She's gonna drop a smoke bomb since in the past it got rid of the mist, right? Okay, so she'll drop a smoke bomb to prevent the mist, which is what Colin was warning her about the mist, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Drop a smoke bomb.
And as she is doing this, Colin would see, Siri would not see this because it's behind her. The giant moth, light as wind, had come up over and above her and was beginning to rain mist atop her. The smoke bomb deploys just as it is beginning to do this, and does serve as an umbrella for Ciri as she is doing so, though Cullen would note that the smoke her bomb produces is quickly, begins to be visibly eaten away at by the mist. So it is far from a permanent solution. From his estimation, the cloud is over halfway down to the ground.
Would the cloud get to the ground before the smoke is gone?
It's very hard for him to make that sort of calculation on the spot just off of what he sees. Maybe.
Okay. So I'm going to hope that it doesn't.
Is
or
he
at
going to
least
be...
in a minimal sense,
Yeah.
it only barely reaches her.
Is Cullen going to be maintaining his current position? And if so, what does he want to be doing?
So he's getting ready for this cloud to reach, and he's basically just praying to his god, I have a really dumb plan. I need you to protect me in any way you can, because this is gonna suck.
And what does Ciri want to try to do? Oh yeah, pardon? Follow up.
So just so that you know, the idea is when the clouds reach the ground, just so that all of the mist that has been generated to this point, as well as the moth itself, is just smothered in this cloud. He's going to smash the thunderbolt, with the idea being the arc of the electricity is going to jump inside of the cloud.
Yeah,
and
that's kind of what I was guessing.
Yeah, and my thought process being, because the mist isn't it's not like a liquid, it's moths, right? They have some kind of electrical charge and likely can take some manner of damage from electricity, and so it'll start bouncing between them. That's the thought process that I have.
Well, it's a thought process that at the very least, from what Cullen would know, seems to at least be plausible. And to check back in with Ciri before we bounce back to RC, having deployed her smoke bomb, what does she want to do? You want to touch his hand? Try to pull it from his face?
Yeah, take his hands away from his face. I know earlier he was clawing his face, so at the very least, if she cannot pry his hands away from his face, get them to be gentler.
Okay. His hands are covered in ink. He wrote all over his body. Is this still something you want to try to do?
Is there ink on his face?
The face is the one part of his body and clothing you can see that does not have ink on it.
In that case, instead of trying to take his hands away from his face, she's going to touch her forehead to his, kind of angling so that she's not touching his hands, and just kind of whisper to him, "You're gonna be okay."
And as she says this, her mind is flooded with his poem in her own voice. She feels a catch in her throat, and tears jump to her eyes, and her whole body tense, and her shoulders hunch, and her hands start to tremble, and memories flooding into her mind of past failures, past miseries. For the moment, she is transfixed by this. RC, jumping back to you, do you have an idea for an incantation?
I do.
Excellent. Before we get to it, we're going to save that part. You indicated that you wanted to try to get a piece from each of your allies to initiate this magic. Is that still the case?
Yeah.
Now, first of all...
You'll get a thunderbolt. Cullen, it's just going to happen at some point. Don't worry about that.
So along those lines...
That'll come your way. Indirectly, but it's going to get there.
How do you want to try to initiate the reception of their contributions? Or do you feel like you need to actively ask them? Or are you just going to try to pick them up as they happen?
I'm going to ask them to do what they keep doing, but do what they're doing, but channel it to one spot. I'm going to conjure a lightning bolt, and I want them to focus their energy on there.
Now, as you're doing so, you're still, as you know, you retreated a little bit away when the moth initially came. Are you going to be returning towards the fray, or are you going to be staying a little ways away?
I'm going to be standing a little ways away.
Awesome. And the things that you've indicated thus far, you have indicated a candle, you've indicated your bracers to help unleash a little bit of an extra spark, and you've indicated a lightning bolt. Describe to me what she is doing with the candle and the light. I presume the lightning bolt is being held aloft because that's kind of sounded like what you are going for as you call out to your allies. If that's not the case, let me know. But what do you want to be doing with the candle?
She's going to be holding the candle close to her heart and chest to channel the purity aspect of it.
Absolutely.
She's going to spark the flame.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to hold it close to her chest. And she's going to start the incantation. And she's going to, when she's done with the candle, she's going to douse it with the little drop of water from her hometown, from her homeland. And she's going to say the incantation. She's going to lasso him with her magic lasso. And she's going to start the incantation to help with the purification process.
Mm-hmm. Before we get to that, RC's voice would carry to Cullen first. From what it sounded like, can you repeat what you would have said to like called out to Cullen and Siri?
Cullen, Siri, I need you both to channel your energy here. And then the lightning bolt forms. And I need you, Cullen, to summon a lightning bolt to merge with mine. And Siri, I need you to focus your mental energy right on the spot.
Now, Cullen, hearing this, what would you like to do? Your cloud is about to make landfall.
I'm going to say that spot's not going to be one spot for very long. But I'll put some power into it.
Cullen would also notice that the moth, as it had been trying to disperse Siri's smoke cloud. However, as the cloud, as your friggin' air cloud comes down, the moth swerves and swoops, tucking itself under a ruin, like a prominent ruined archway nearby, as it tries to hide itself from the cloud that is coming down to smother the ruin. And jumping back to Siri, after your moment of being subsumed by emotions and the poem in your mind, RC's voice snaps you back to reality. You can see that the man, for the first time, has pulled his hands partially away from his face. He's looking at you, but not focused on you, kind of staring into middle distance past your eyes.
Uh-huh.
You do hear RC's words. What would you like to do?
Yeah. Trying to figure out how to do both, because I feel like that's going to end up being difficult. Okay. Oh, gosh. Okay. It sounds like RC's thing is... Oh, everything's really pressing. Oh, gosh. Okay. Okay. Because I had an initial idea, and I don't want to not do that, but also RC's thing sounds like it's gonna get us out of this, but also Siri doesn't really know RC's plan. So I think
Viewpoint is off cooldown.
okay. Sorry if you heard something from this. Okay. It's my dad talking to my dog. Okay.
That makes significantly more sense now.
Yeah. Sorry. I think she's going to okay. I described my version of Viewpoint earlier as Siri sinking back into herself and allowing these other thoughts to come forward.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if I can utilize that to allow the synced back version to focus on the point RC mentioned and having this forward element be something else, if I can kind of multitask that way.
Absolutely. Well, remember that with Viewpoint, once you've set a viewpoint on someone, you can close your eyes to check back in on them, and also have your eye, open your eyes back up to stop checking in on them without destroying the viewpoint.
So my goal with Viewpoint. Okay.
It's
okay,
a tricky
okay.
one, isn't it?
I'm trying to balance out all these different things. Okay. Yeah, I'm screwed. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna continue touching foreheads with this guy.
Yep.
Keep eye contact. Close my eyes for a moment. Viewpoint on the mist.
Viewpoint on the mist.
I have I'm gonna say my theory about what the mist is, so you can kind of get a vibe of what I'm trying to check for.
Yeah.
The mist slash moth thingy going on, I'm assuming is some sort of personification of this man's grief or pain or in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a way I can like verify that or figure out what's going on.
As you activate the viewpoint, and I'm assuming you're going to check in on it, yes?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it sees from the perspective of the moth, currently tucked and hiding like a cornered animal underneath a ruined archway a little ways away from you. The moth's eyes are not focused on any of you, the ones attacking it. Its eyes are entirely focused on him. And as a moth, it has compound eyes. And so you see 100, like 200, 300 little windows, little copies of the same image of it focusing in on the man's face, clearly still like more revealed, but still gouging into his own cheeks. You can see that the moth, as it looks towards him, also, since you're seeing through its eyes, it is seeing something that you do not see as being there. It does not see him in his current form. It sees a young boy in his exact same position, in his exact same pose, with his exact same injuries.
Okay. Gonna be thinking on that while we rotate turns again, but also, going in and out of this and focusing some of my energy onto the place RC mentioned.
And RC, as you approach, now with your lightning bolt held aloft. Oh, if you need a moment, that's totally fine.
Oh no, I'm good.
Awesome. So in that case, as you approach with your lightning bolt held aloft, the cloud that Cullen has conjured is about to subsume the entire area. It's a heavy, thick, fluffy white cumulonimbus cloud that completely blocks the sun. What would you like to do with your thunderbolt aloft? Cullen has confirmed. Ciri has not said anything yet, but she also seems to be quite deep in her own processes over right next to the old man. What would you like to do? Oh, if you need a moment. No problem.
I got a phone call. It's fine. I would like to go ahead with the plan because our window of opportunity is closing, and that's very evident. So I'm going to lasso the man with my magical lasso on his shoulders.
The lasso is conjured from nowhere and gently coils around him. It would actually partially drape around Ciri as well because she is so close to him.
Okay, that works. Oh my gosh. And so I will put the lightning bolt where I said I was going to throw it. Gonna light the candle with fire from my fingertip and hold it close to my chest. As I wait for the other lightning bolt, I begin concentrating my magical energy on the candle and with the purification process.
And it's at this point that the cloud makes contact. Cullen, actions.
So, Cullen would have seen the moth kind of hide under the archway, right?
Yep.
How about far away is that?
So from his perspective, it would be past where Ciri and the old man are kneeling.
But, like, not incredibly far away?
No.
Okay. So, the idea here being, I want to smash the thunderbolt with the thunder hammer, but like angle the hammer, like angle the strike towards the moth, right? So
I see what you mean.
Whatever comes out of this is like likely going to wave out, but I want that wave to head in the direction of the moth.
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean. And is this what you want to do as the cloud hits, or do you have a thing you want to do immediately beforehand?
I'm gonna call out, brace yourselves, this is the worst.
Yeah. And as lightning arcs through the air. It sends out like a cone of forking lightning that arches all the way across the middle of the ruin through the body of the cloud. RC, one of these arcing tendrils of lightning strikes your own bolt.
All right.
What is your incantation?
That will do just fine, Cullen. That will just fine. Pure of heart, pure of soul. Guide this poor soul to a new start.
Oh.
And as you say the words, your own lightning bolt disperses in your hand. It also arcs into the heavy cloud around you. And Ciri, you feel yourself transfixed on the spot as electricity courses through your body from your point of contact with the old man. You are unable to move. You are unable to even think. It's just like a high-pitched noise in your ears and a strange vibrating in your vision and a locking of every muscle in your body, and then it's done. And both you and the old man topple sideways.
Into the ink. Uh-oh.
Your eyes are open and you are conscious. You don't know if he is conscious. His eyes are open, though. However, both RC and Cullen would see the following. One of those inky tendrils that you saw Ciri connect to as she touched the ink has emerged from the old man's face through those hands of his and connects to the great moth. And then snaps. The moth...
It's either very good or very, very bad.
The moth lunges out from its little hiding spot and leaps into the cloud. As it does, like blundering blindly through it. As it clearly is trying to make its way towards Ciri and the old man, just trying to like leap towards them, though it has clearly been badly wounded. Actions starting with Cullen, then with RC.
So how's the visibility with the cloud now? Just nothing?
As a Thunderbird, you are immune to the negative effects of your own storm brewing, so you can see through it perfectly.
Awesome. So I can see this thing's trajectory.
Yeah.
All right. I am going to stop caring about the ink at all. I'm going to break out into as much of a sprint as I can. Hilaria, like about as high as I can possibly get. And do I have enough energy to cast out of the blue?
Yes, you absolutely do.
Okay.
And as you are climbing, this would bring you kind of above where Ciri and the old man are on the ground as the moth is lunging in towards them.
Okay, like, would it be at all possible to get above the moth? Or is that
It will be a very close call because by the time it contacts them, like, so it's a very short timing window between when you'd be above it
point
and
of contact.
Exactly.
So would I be able?
I feel like I have the skill to land it out of the blue in time.
Yeah, if that's what you're going for, RC, what do you want to be doing? You can see, or like in the flash of light that illuminates the cloud, you can see the moth untethered and then starting to like rush towards the old man. You also can see Cullen starting to run towards it from your left. What would you like to take, though your visibility is much lower than Cullen's at the moment?
So would I be able to see like his like outlines and the
Yeah, outlines is fine.
Okay. So I can see his body like going higher, and would I be able to boost him up with like
that's sick.
air?
What would that feel like? Like what? How would you cast this magic?
I would give him a boost of currents of air to make him go higher.
Yeah, of course. But like, what does it feel like to make that magic happen for you?
It would feel lightweight and just letting go, or carefree.
Yeah, and you're moving with your hands. Is this something that RC would be doing as well, like a whisking movement with your hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was leading for. I like that. And Cullen would feel the wind at his back push him that extra bit forward to give him a perfect window of opportunity.
Oh yes, this is the time. And guys, take the reaction, or would you like to go back to
Fire?
Ciri first?
Fire away.
Okay, he's gonna raise his hammer above his head and shout, "For the glory of Arcturus!" and swing his hammer down as he just like. 'Cause I'm reading this and I'm trying to understand exactly how it works. So it surged to the earth as a bolt of lightning.
Yep.
So I want to send that bolt through the moth, and when I come back to my regular form, hammer in the ground.
Excellent. In that case, Siri, from your position on the ground, right next to you, you would see a moment of the moth looming out of the cloud into you, like towards you and him, like a train onrushing. And then the lightning split your vision. And by the time your eyes readjust, you would see Cullen in form with his hammer plastering the moth into the ground as it starts to bleed away and wisp into nothingness. It fades away over the next couple seconds. Its crumpled body, huge but still fragile, dematerializing. And the old man across from Siri gives a shaking, rattling and starts to rub his forehead. His face is still bleeding from where he was gouging it. Siri, do you have any actions you want to take? Oh, sorry?
Is there still ink?
There is, but the ink has completely changed in quality. It feels more like loose graphite than like ink.
In that case, Siri's just gonna, like, I assume when they fell over, they separated, kind
Yeah.
of. Just kind of reach out a hand.
You see that his old hand clutches yours, and his desperate eyes peer through at you. You can see his full face for the first time. He says, "How did you know? How did you know? I didn't think anyone knew."
I certainly didn't. My plan was honestly to kill you.
I'm a bit unclear about what it is that I know.
You said that you know, woman. How did you know? Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted right now.
Oh, sorry. I saw it and then kind of like reach out a hand to his face, and as she does it, take her other hand and phantasm a like kind of 2D image of, I don't think she remembers the exact thing that she saw, but kind of like slideshowy.
Yeah.
Like the clips that she does remember, the cellar and looking out.
Yeah.
And things like that.
His eyes twitch to it, and he bows his head. It's haunted me for so long. He starts to push himself into a kneeling position and looks at the cloud that is still thick around you. At this point, RC, do you want to be approaching the group of three a little ways through you, a little ways ahead of you into the mist?
Yes, I would like to glide my way in.
Yep.
So it's quick. Okay.
And
Hear me.
as RC joins, yes.
Hear me, good sir. You've spent many, many of your years trapped inside of your own pain, and would you indeed like a second chance? I can allow you a second chance. Only if you consent, because this is a big decision to make.
He gives a weak smile and says, "You're very kind." He looks around. My gratitude cannot be put to words. I do not believe I deserve a second chance for what I have done, or almost did. He blinks.
I didn't ask if you thought you deserved a second chance. I asked, do you want a second chance?
Oh, it's gonna interject. Everyone deserves a second chance. Just Next time you feel pissed at the world, try not to summon a giant demon moth, because that really bunks up the works, if you know what I mean.
He blearily blinks and then looks to RC and says, "Yes, my lady, I do want that."
All right, she pours the drop of water on the flame, and she takes the drop and puts it on his forehead and on his eyes. And as she does this, he slowly starts to de-age to a much, much younger self.
Let me think
To
about
someone
this.
around in his mid-20s.
I think that is too powerful, but
Too powerful.
I will let his hands de-age.
He's a fully grown man with the hands of a baby.
Little nubs.
Hands of a early teen. And as
Still look incredibly strange.
And as she does so, you all feel your Enclave badges ping gently.
It's so cool that you have those physical badges
Yeah,
now.
that's sick.
I always
Yeah.
tried to picture in my head what those looked like, and now to see it physically, that's awesome.
And does anyone have any final actions they would like to take?
I think Siri would push herself up to stand and then offer a hand to the poet to help him stand as well.
He takes it.
Tell me, what is your name?
He says, "Gert."
I'm so sorry, I didn't hear it. It's gonna get rid of all the dramatic vibes.
I'll write it down for you.
Did you say
He says-
your name is Gert?
Gert.
Gert.
There are some strange names from the place that I come from, but by good Gert.
It is not a name
Well,
that I have fond memories of. He says,
there are generally avenues to legally change that. You do know this. I don't know about this land, but most places there are avenues to have that changed.
he says, "Perhaps I will look into it."
Perhaps you should, because Gert, not popular with the ladies, I must say. That will not get you far. If
says-
that's how you swing, honestly. You can swing any way you want, but from personal experience.
He says, "Maybe I will go by Young Hand from now on. That will be a moniker that will be remembered."
That's kind of an odd, not really, maybe a good pet name, but as a legal thing that people are just supposed to call you in your day to day, I wouldn't go for it. Not really. Maybe so. I don't know. Maybe something like Adam.
As someone who knew a man who went by the name Shaggy Man, I believe Young Hands is just fine.
And on that note, we will end the
Wow.
mission. Oh, actually, final action from RC then.
While I may not have been able to help you in the way that I thought I could have, I still have much, much to learn. However, my mother, Diana, can help you better than I can. She reaches in her pouch and hands him a map of her homeland. Travel to this land and give her this, and he hands him an acorn. She will help you have a better chance at a second life than I.
Your kindness will not be lost. And on that note, we will end the mission. Nicely done, friends.
Yay!
I finally got to do cool combat in Enclave. I've played an effective illusionist class, but with weird quirks, odds, and ends, and I have played a gunslinger that can teleport but I've never done bring a cloud from the sky and arc electricity through it. That is a different ball game.
So first of all, I realized when I came up with the idea for this that I was like, oh, nice. Siri has a chance at an exorcism with an actual satisfying conclusion for this one.
I was excited about that.
I'll promise you, this is your last exorcism for a while. And additionally, so going through a couple of high points for me. First of all, Zach, that run into Thunderclap smash on the Rebel was perfectly pulled off. The fact that you knew to avoid or intuited to avoid the ink was incredibly smart. Really good game sense. And the cloud
when
thing
things don't smell the way that they should, it's bad. It's either rotten food or it's cursed. So, I mean, logic states, don't touch it.
It was giving cursed.
Yeah,
it was giving curse.
And along those same lines, the recognizing the smoke thing off of Siri and then thinking to bring down the cloud was genius. Like, I thought that you guys would have to have a serious fight against that thing, and that like dramatically improved your chances against it.
That is something that I am surprisingly good at pulling out of my ass, is making the mission, like the circumstance that we're in, significantly easier to get out of.
Well, you did great energy work, and you pulled off some very clean manifestations. The bringing the cloud down thing I would not have allowed if you had any less than 3 pluses to arcane. Like, nice. That is a big one.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, I had a feeling that like big arcane energy was going to be coming out of this one, so I was like, you know what? We're going into arcane again. We're doing
really did. And so along the lines of big arcane. So from Mars. First of all, you played Spirit Insights really well. I like the fact that you picked up that you were getting emotional resonance off of things going on, and then you pursued that. Spirit Insights are not easy, and that's something that a lot of people like save for much later. But with your plus to Spirit, you did some work on that. Second of all, despite having no pluses to Vitality, you pulled off a frickin' amazing rally. You remember when you made that speech to him? That was fucking fantastic. Like, the way you played RC, I was like, I want to see her with pluses to Vitality, because you played the rally so well. And what that did, if you had not done that, the thing that the rally did to him is it gave him enough power to actually fight back against the Moth enough to get it out of his body. That was the thing that exposed the Moth. And that was brilliantly frickin' done. Now, for some of the things that you were doing with like pulling stuff out from your homeland, the Wanderer class has an item called a satchel that like does exactly that. Now, obviously, since it's your first time, I'm going to give you a lot more leeway, but you can also do that with something called common items that you can get after missions that you are on, which is like a mundane item from for where like you get to design it yourself. It can't be nearly as powerful as class items, but it can still have implications in magic, and like that ritual you set up, that's fantastic. So like if we were gonna like give you rewards for this mission, I would definitely suggest you get like a bottle of water from your homeland as like a core item for your character. Because I loved how you were doing that, and I didn't want to like say no to it because of how sick it was. So like that, really great. And I loved your setup for the ritual. Things like your magic lasso, that's totally something you could use arcane manifestation for, and have it be like a magic lasso rather than a physical one. You know, so. Like a couple of jumps, but still a lot of what you did was great, and you pulled off some like remarkably good high-level mechanics in rallying and Spirit Insights.
Like that was a very impressive ritual cast.
That was
is what you did there. Like the first time that I got into ritual casting, it was with someone who had already done a lot of ritual casting, and they were leading the way through the entire thing. We ended up with like what I was talking about while Robbie was formulating the mission, that memory bomb. Right, we ended up with that, which was super cool. But my insights and contributions were largely reactive. To have the initial insight of, hey, what if I chain these things together and use these in a certain way, right? doing like having that mindset, especially with a game like Enclave, is massive. It is incredibly powerful and something that you like. If you continue to play the game, you should really hone it on because you can really get up to some fun shenanigans.
And frankly, the Thunderbird is the best class in this roster for ritual casting.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, from what I read, definitely.
The ceremonial drum in particular is nuts for ritual stuff.
Yeah.
So honestly,
Yeah.
Mars, like this was one of the most interesting first time showcases of someone's skill in Enclave, where you picked up like 3 or 4 highly advanced mechanics and ran with them. Like nicely frickin' done. So
Yeah.
to round off, Mary May, your second time diving in. Oh, pardon me. It's like less than 10 minutes and then I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, maybe like 7, 8.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, cool. Because he's ready to.
Oh yeah, I'll brush his teeth. Don't worry. Got to brush my son's teeth. He's got to get ready for bed. So I want to round this off though. Mary May, beautifully done. I saw you picking up a lot of the things you've been learning on your first mission and elaborating on them here. Your use of the fan was so good. Like not only using it to manipulate things like the mist, not only using it to capture attention, but then severing the frickin' like gooey things that were good. That is so fucking perfect. It was brilliant.
When she
fan work.
used it to kneel on the ink without getting it on her body.
Yeah, that was a great move.
Ingenious.
So I was thinking, like, that's going to go one of two ways. Either that fan is gone and now there's more ink on you, or that was brilliant.
And the thing is, the fan protects against magic, and so it was like the perfect item to do that with. I was really impressed with that move. And on top of that, I think we can say that you are the viewpoint master at this point. Like,
oh yeah,
viewpoint to see past memories, and then viewpoint on the moth, and then just like such clean viewpoints
on the mist. That was genius.
Yeah.
The only thing that I can equate that to in my experience in Enclave, one of the old abilities of the Fox, I don't know if this is something that you're going to bring into the Fox class when it's actually like released, but was soul stealing. And the method by which you could do that is you could actually detect souls to a degree. And in one mission in particular, my character was actually seeing like problems in like the physical structure of the souls of people that we were kind of investigating, right? And like that was like some high level insight to think to do that.
Seriously.
Like to think of, hey, is there something wrong with their souls? Hey, can I viewpoint the mist? That is genius.
And then on top of that, the fact that you got his attention and gave him the emotional hook of, when you initially said, also calling him boy, fucking smart. Like, it just, it put his mind where it needed to be. If you had not had that setup where you initially did that veneer and you're like, I know what's going on, that sort of thing, then RC trying to rally him, he would have just ignored. Like, you made him vulnerable. And you honestly, you guys did pretty much exactly what I thought your roles would be on this mission of Illusionist gets the hook in and runs support, and then the Thunderbirds get rid of the Moth. But you just did it in like the last way I expected. So, in summary, brilliantly done. Before we sign off, do you have any final questions you want to direct to me about the mission or calls made in game or similar?
I think I do off the top of my head. I mean, I am curious how someone who only has a little bit of magic managed to magically create their inner torment and trauma. But I'm sure that's something that we'll get to another time.
Well, I can say right. Oh yeah.
My thought process behind that, as far as rationalizing it, was first of all, this, as was kind of hinted at, it was kind of a jump, but it's very possible that this is what this was. The tower that we were at was a massive conduit for magic, some kind of guiding force magic, right? Something considerably stronger than the area around it usually has. And so being in that location, and a lot of magic is very much based in emotion. That's one of the reasons that Robbie's asking, what emotion are you feeling when you're trying to mess around with the way your ability works, right? A lot of magic is rooted in emotion, and this guy was going through some of the strongest emotions possible. So to see something like this manifest, despite being in a place that's not very magically attuned makes sense.
Yeah, the way
At
I
least
would
to me.
add to it is that in Enclave, since we have so much freedom with world building and I have freedom in design, it lets me get a little creative with how magic feels and manifests between different areas you visit. Like if we're looking at the real world, if you were to tell me that poetry had magical properties, I'd probably say probably not. But if something had to have magical properties, poetry's up there. And so perhaps it came from that. Perhaps it was a way of him sublimating his childhood trauma. Perhaps it was a possession by an evil spirit who capitalized upon that. I will leave that part ambiguous, but I think that your mind is in the right direction of saying, there's a mystery there. Any other questions that you have? Any other things you want to go over?
I'm excited for tomorrow.
Hell yeah, I'm going to do some in-person stuff tomorrow as well.
Ooh,
Yeah.
very cool.
That's going to be my final in-store appearance for the campaign. At the Hall of Gaming,
wow.
I'll put a link in the description. They're great.
Wow.
It's also in Connecticut, unfortunately. Sorry, Zach.
Not super far, but definitely not a drive that I'm going to just make on a day's trip.
That's a hoof. Yeah. In that case, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you all so very much for playing. If you wouldn't mind outroing yourselves in the same order that you introed, so Zach, Mary May, and Mars.
For sure. Thank you for having us, Robbie. It has been an absolute blast to get to play Enclave again. I don't think that I've played Enclave since like last year, just because, like as I mentioned to you before, my character's been flavor locked for eternity. But it was nice to come at it from a different angle, and like really see like what the depths of combat can get to. But for people at home, the game's fun. Check it out. Play it. I don't think by the time this goes up, the Kickstarter will still be running.
Nah.
But like, as soon as you can, get your hands on a copy. It's crazy fun. There are a lot of reviews out there that like get a lot of things wrong about what the game itself is, and specifically what this edition is. Like, the main edition of the game is going to have very comprehensive like progression, leveling, power scaling, all of that fun stuff that you really want in an RPG. I know this from experience. I've been playing the game for 6 years, right? It is so much fun, and the progression is incredibly rewarding. Like, you feel it the moment you get it, and it's fantastic. If you're into kind of like the storytelling and role-playing aspect, this is the game for you, for sure.
You're very kind to say that, Zach, and it's been a pleasure getting to play with you again.
It'll be hard to follow that one.
Long-winded.
Thank you for having me again, Robbie. I had so much fun. I think I said this last time. This system just reminds me of being a kid again, and like running around in my backyard with my brother pretending to be superheroes and just saying what we want to, and then the other person calls out if it doesn't work. But it's really giving me that excitement again. If you don't ask me back, I'm going to be upset.
You will be asked back.
You can't break my shield. My shield counters your shield.
Yeah, no, literally, of just being like, oh, I want to be like.
It is, yeah, it's exactly
of, like,
that childlike wonder.
Mermaids.
Yeah.
Do you guys know that of like 8-year-old girls playing mermaids in the pool, and one of them goes, "Oh, I can talk to animals, and my tail is rainbow, but also I can breathe underwater too." And then everybody else is like, "You can't do all of that." So
Yeah.
it is a much better version of that.
It's a structured version of the chaos of childhood play.
Yeah, exactly right. Thank you very much for saying so, Mary May. It is a pleasure as always. You will absolutely be back on this at some point. And finally, our last outro.
Hi, it was a bunch of fun. I was a little nervous at first, but it really gets your creative juices really flowing, and you really have to think outside the box, and it's fun to play a character who's, not necessarily like you, or like, a version of you that you wish you could be like. And I think that whoever plays Enclave will have the time of their lives and really just enjoy the moment and really want to make it last as long as they can.
It's very kind.
But in the end, it truly does come down to how good your conduit is, and Robbie, truly, we could not have asked for a better one.
You definitely couldn't have.
That's very, very sweet. You, I didn't expect you to say nice things. God damn it.
Why would we not? We just
What
had the
would we
time
say?
of our life. We
We're gonna rip
killed a
into it.
giant moth mist destruction god. Do you think we're gonna have a bad time doing that?
Nah, of course not. I'm delighted that you had a great time, and thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this with me this evening. But until next time, my name has been Robbie Howell. Thank you all once again for playing, and ciao for now.
So long.